Yeah, and it's a principle of my theology that it's very problematic. If you say God knows what you're going to do before you're going to do it, nothing matters anymore ethically. Nothing matters. Yeah, it's just God is a mad scientist, and we're just pawns in a game that he already knows the outcome to. Thus, he has the audacity to punish you over it. I have a problem with it logically. I'm not saying that there aren't verses in the Bible that lead us to believe that, although there's verses that lead us to believe the opposite. Right? It does say that God regrets making man, so we have to balance these things out. So, being that we have both of these verses, these set of verses, I think that reason and ethics have to, or immorality have to play a part. And that's that God can't claim to be just. He can't claim to be good, and punish you when he programmed you to be like a screw up and a criminal. So like Maimonides, there's a statement in Pirkei Avot that says that everything's under fear of heaven except the fear of heaven. Right? Sounds, it could be a rap lyric. Now, if you think about that, it's quite profound. So his commentary to this is that everything's under heaven means that he controls everything but the fear of heaven. Meaning not whether you're going to believe in God or not, but whether you're going to do the right thing or not. Right? Clearly following a good God is doing the right thing. Not unaliving is doing the right thing. All that falls under the fear of heaven. To say that the fear of heaven is under the control of God is very problematic. It's very problematic. So I don't blame people for coming to the conclusion that God controls everything. I do dislike them when they attack other people who happen to disagree. Because those of us who disagree for a reason. Not that we're trying to limit God, but we're trying to make him, remain righteous, remain ethical, right? And you can't be ethical if you're not consistently moral. And this would be kind of immoral. The whole notion of reward and punishment and punishing people for things that he was going to do before they did them. I don't know. The bulk of the stuff I teach here may seem heretical, but it's for a good cause, which should make us in some way reevaluate anyone we'd ever call a heretic. There are some people who hold certain ideas for the sake of God, because I'm not saying I'm super intelligent, but some people see further than other people how a certain idea, if not confronted, could end up hurting the religion or hurting the Torah. So they take a certain conclusion so that in these discussions and debates, they could at the end make God look good. But some people, they watch too much sci-fi, and they think no, God knows everything. God knows this. God can't create a stone big enough that he could carry. When elephants play, the grass suffers, and they don't understand that at the end of the day, you're just hurting the argument, because these people are used to talking to other religious people. They're not used to talking to atheists. Okay, the biggest threat to religion is not from Jehovah's Witnesses or Pentecostals or Chabad, or even Islam. The biggest threat is from atheism. And that's what people don't understand. So when these guys are debaters, but strictly on dogma, because this is what you have on TikTok, right? I mean, a Trinitarian will roll into some sort of Unitarian TikTok, and then the insults start flying, your mama this, your mama that, and they don't understand that the people who are laughing at them are the atheists. Because the atheist is, the big boss. In terms of the video game, the last guy you have to fight, right? The most skilled opponent is the atheist, is not the Trinitarian who happens to believe in everything you believe in, with the exception of the complexity of the unity of God, whatever that is. Okay, it's so stupid. So what you have is people who know the Bible in and out, wasting their time playing one-on-one with 10-year-olds. Okay, I mean, that's all you have. People who claim to know the Bible in and out should be confronting atheists, trying to answer the big questions, because that's where the glory is. If there's any such thing as a religious, TikTok groupie, and I'm sure they exist, right? I mean, surround debaters or whatever. Just there's groupies of everything. I was listening to Tank Abbott being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and he was talking about the ring rats. right? Ring rats are like groupies that follow MMA fighters or something like that, right? If there's any sort of groupie like that, those groupies should be interested in people who are debating the most, difficult debaters, the ones confronting the biggest, arguments, not someone just regurgitating Calvinism or St. Thomas Aquinas, or just regurgitating. If you really want to be a thug in a positive way, I guess in America we glorify the term thug. In the religious world, devote your ministry or part of what you do to debating atheists. Okay, because that is where the real glory is. You do that, you're actually doing the world a favor. You go around debating Trinitarians, you're just hurting yourself, because atheists go unchecked while you're doing that, right? I mean, we're limited to how many people we can debate in a day, in an hour, whatever. And atheists, could post their little "prove me that God is wrong." And the most successful evangelicals on TikTok are the atheists.
That's true.
And mainly because they go unchallenged. Some people devote their whole ministry to confronting Islam, which I get it. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but when you already have, like 100 people doing that and no one devoting, no, I'm not saying no one, I'm sure.
I have seen, Jewish people who debate atheists quite frequently.
Who's that? Religious Jewish people?
All right, you got me.
Yeah, there's who debates atheists.
I know Sachs did one time. He debated Richard Dawkins.
Oh, okay, all right. I mean, I have not heard that debate. You're talking about Jonathan Sachs or the late?
They do. I saw like it on YouTube, and the comments were very positive. They said he won, and it was a neutral channel, so it wasn't like JTV or something like that.
Now, I'm not saying that religious people wouldn't be successful. I'm just saying that that's the real battle. That's the real battle, not fighting amongst yourselves. But I welcome whenever an atheist comes out of here. I mean, I'm very respectful, and I want the dialogue, right? But you can't be running away from these fights. And when you only debate one topic, right, because that's all you know, it's like sometimes people come up and all they know is Israel-Palestine. So they'll try to bend the conversation to always end up in Israel-Palestine. Coño, I mean, it's like hanging out with a friend who's freshly saved. Everything's about Jesus. Mix it up a little. I mean, I get it. I mean, some people are good in benching and some people are good in leg lifts. But the guy only wants to bench when the girl's in the room. Bro, come on, mix it up a little. Because that's where the glory really is. That's where the true achievement is. And people, for some reason, Jews in particular, like attack me on this thing. They're like, "Oh, what do you mean? We have more in common with atheists than we do with Christians. What's wrong with atheism?"
That's not true.
Yeah, right. No, but they say this all the time. Like, what's wrong with atheism? Because they think, like, how dangerous could you be when you don't believe in anything? You're the most dangerous when you don't believe in anything. All right. They don't understand that. They don't understand that atheism is a religion. The name of the religion of atheism is called leftism. And they actually have more in common amongst themselves than religious people have. Right? I mean, if someone tells me they're atheist, 9 out of 10 times I already know where they stand on the abortion debate. I already know where they stand on the Gaza-Israel debate. I already know how they stand like on the like gender debate. Right? It's like cookie cutter. Religious people are a mixed bag. You got libertarians here, anti-Trumpers here. Right? It's my gosh. There's the evil party and the stupid party, and we're part of the stupid party. Unfortunately. Because there's a lot of wasted potential. So much wasted potential.
The two ideologies that I've seen people leave the least are probably like atheism and Islam. I've seen the people leave those the least.
And it's not a coincidence.
Say there's a lot of ex-Muslims. I don't know if I believe that.
It's not a coincidence that they pander to each other on civil issues, right? I mean, who's marching alongside like Muslims in this Gaza debacle, right? But it's the left. It's atheistical people. Why? They have nothing in common, with the exception that they hate the West.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So it's weird. it's a weird world. You know, I mean, it's
That's
like if we were
something.
arguing for like a kosher cause and Antifa came out supporting our cause, right? I mean, that would be kind of silly.
Let me ask you something, Rabbi Asher. If you had to choose between like living in Seattle and living in like Muslim Spain, like Andalusia, in the Golden Age, which one would you pick?
You know, only because you were in ancient Muslim Spain and they may have shared biblical values. I think the Islamic ideology is so all-encompassing that it's quite similar to living in a leftist society. Because the reason we tolerate being bossed around by religious people is because we think that they're being guided by some higher authority. The reason we don't tolerate being like bossed around like by a bunch of leftists is because that authority to them is themselves, right? I mean, they've made themselves to be God. But Islamic societies are quite all-encompassing. That means they'll tell you what to do from when you wake up to you go to bed. So in terms of freedom, at least Seattle is still in America. Like at least I could sneak a gun into Seattle. I don't. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's a difficult one. Now, who do I have more in common with? Muslims all the way. All the way. I mean, I could roll with Muslims. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't roll with a 40, And what can you do with Muslims? I guess you could smoke out with a Muslim, right? I mean, anyone who's ever walked down the shuk, that's all. They don't drink. All right, so the shuk is like the market. At least in Israel, when you say the shuk, I mean, people think like the Arab market. Shuk just means market in Arabic. So they don't drink. I mean, they drink tea all day long, but they do smoke. I mean, these guys, you just smell it in the air, right? These guys smoke out. What's my point of saying that? I lost my train of thought. Oh, in terms of rolling with these guys, I don't know, rolling with a bunch of Antifa guys and they're smoking cloves or whatever. I don't know. It's just not. I have nothing in common with these people. So, Andalusia, Spain, with internet and air conditioning is probably not as bad as having to tolerate the opposite in Portland or Seattle, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, guys, like the show, follow the host, the likes are down, guys. Like. Let's get these numbers up. Share it with your haters. Oh my gosh, I mean with my haters. There you go. Make this all about me.
I shared it with one of my haters. They joined the live.
No, not your hater, my hater. No, you're always willing to fight, which is an admirable quality, by the way.
Appreciate it.
They say, like Dana White was talking about Conor McGregor, that the reason he respects him so much is that anytime he would toss a fight his way, he never turns it down. Like he had a guy that would fight anyone, anytime. Tank Abbott also, by the way. Anytime, anywhere. Right? People who are like, I need time to debate. Come on, bro. Or how many times have you wanted to debate someone? They're like, I need time to prepare. What's the topic on? Right when they tell you what the topic is on, it means that he's not well-rounded on the general issue. Like the topic is Judaism, Ninja. I mean, that's a topic. Oh, no. What in Judaism? What? I mean, so they can read a whole, dossier in front of you. Of course, the topic should always be decided upon 5 minutes before the debate begins. Now, it depends what type of debate you're having. Like most debates on TikTok are flex debates. Now, clearly, I'm talking about a flex debate. If someone really wants to present the facts on a specific issue, yes, prepare. Okay, like if they're talking about quantum, physics or mechanics, fine, prepare. But if someone's going to call you out and then you challenge them to a debate to in some way, I don't know, like qualify or disqualify that person's statements, and then he asks, "What's the topic on? I need to know before I debate." Like, player, you called me out. You better be ready, because I'm always ready. Anyways, so yeah, you always have to be ready, well-rounded. Let's see. Let me share this. Yeah, guys, like the show, like the quoting you, like the show, follow the host, share it with the haters of this channel, and they are many.
Rabbi, what denomination of Christianity were you? Baptist, right?
I went to Jacksonville Baptist Theological Seminary. I wasn't ordained Baptist. I mean, I got a degree in ministerial theology, but the ordination that I got was through some side Pentecostal thing. It doesn't, I guess, matter where you got your ordination from. When I was in the game, Messianic Judaism wasn't a thing. Okay, I mean, there was one Messianic synagogue that I knew of here in South Florida that was led by, now he's pretty famous now. His name is Dan Ben Abraham. So there's a Spanish guy. Everything in Miami or in South Florida is tinged with Hispanic culture. So it was a Spanish synagogue. There may have been another one, but it wasn't Messianic. People confuse Jews for Judaism with Messianic. So it was one called Arna Kodesh or something that was in like West Palm or Boca or something like that. And I visited them once, and then like no one had a kippah on. Not that you need a kippah or whatever. No one had like tzitziot. It was just a church with secular Jews who became Jesus, who became followers of Jesus. Yeah. But that being said, I did attend the Michael Rood conference over 28 years ago, 25 years ago, something. And that was my first exposure to anything messianish, whatever, messianic-ish. Yeah. And surprisingly, like, he looked the same. I mean, Michael Rood hasn't aged. I mean, it's like he was born with that beard. But yeah, I mean, he was bigger. Okay. Welcome, Courtney. What's a good word?
He said he was born with the beard.
Yeah, it's like religious women are born with the little shades on. From it up. I mean, if shaitos were such a thing and they wanted to be so diverse, then why don't you have any like dreadlock shaitos? Would that be like cultural appropriation? No. I mean, it would apply, right? A dreadlock shaito. Oh, where's my audience tonight? There's a tough crowd.
I don't know. You're just saying stuff at this point.
You know what it is? Because I look at the picture of Theo Vaughn and he inspires me to just rant.
Yeah, why do you have Theo Vaughn on there right now?
I mix it up, bro. I mean, I'm a fan of Theo Vaughn.
All right, cool.
Oh, you don't like Theo Vaughn?
Should get him to convert.
You don't like Theo Vaughn?
No, I'm a fan of Theo Vaughn.
Yeah, you got to mix it up a little. Also, like, it shows that we're not that type of religious person. And you know what I mean? That type. Like people who are all...
Oh, you mean the type that protects their ears from improper speech?
Ooh, apple pious, cherry pious. Yeah, that type. Yeah, no, we don't do that. We don't do that here. We're just normal. So what's new, Courtney? Oh, I mean, I quoted you today, and I think I didn't remember the word you used. I mean, to describe people that were part of Amalek when Samuel unalived them. And then I said there was a term that I heard in Stranger Things. And then Theus is here like shapeshifter. And I'm, yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was I mean, that's a lot more complicated of an explanation than just God can take away what he creates.
Shapeshifter. No, but Courtney taught it in a class, right? And you taught it in a video.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was in a live. I mean, Theus is right. I mean, that's a complicated answer rather than just saying God is the giver of life. But
if you have to say something, I mean, say that.
Courtney, do you know Theus Brooks?
I do. Well, I don't know him personally. I know of him. Yeah.
This is actually the answer he gave too.
Which one?
The one I'm saying, that if God is like, if I give you $20 for 100 days, and then on day 101 I stop sustaining you and giving $100 or $20, you can't say that I'm a bad guy. That's what Theus Brooks said, and I agree.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only problem is, like, typically these conversations are brought up because God's morality is in question. So if you just say God can do, hey, chill out. If you just say God can do whatever he wants to do, then it's like you're special pleading for God.
Okay. So, Courtney, how do you answer things about the Midianites and the Canaanites?
I'm sorry, my children are fighting. Could you repeat that?
How do you answer things about the Midianites, the Canaanites, slavery, things like that?
Oh, those are many different subjects, but yes, ma'am. Yes. So this is your cup for the rest of the day. Okay. So the way that I would answer it, like as far as what Asher was talking about, is like my conversation with I forget who it was with, but nonetheless, it's like in the Talmud it discusses why God says to remember what Amalek did to you, right? To constantly be reminded of it. It's like, oh, well, I thought your God is forgiving. Well, why is he saying to remember this over and over again? And it's like these very nations of people were considered, according to like the Talmud, I said, just think of it as like shape shifting, that these people were sorcerers. They had the ability to do specific things, which is why all were to be slaughtered, like animals, as well. So, but yeah, I mean, the simplest answer boils down to exactly what you said. Like Hashem can do what he wants. And it's like, no one really accepts that answer unless you already believe in Hashem. Because I mean, theoretically speaking, would you accept that answer from a Muslim if you believe that Muslims have a different God?
Would I accept one answer that God can do whatever he wants?
Yeah. So like if Muslims
pretty much, yes, I would.
Yeah, so like if Muslims came and like slaughtered like your entire family and they said that, we have a different God and you were fighting back against that and you were like, that's immoral, right? This is like a genocidal thing. Would you accept their answer as, their God can do whatever he wants because he's the giver and the taker of life? Would you accept that as a proper answer to your objection?
Well, I don't believe their God is obviously the giver of moral life, but in their worldview, it makes sense, right? And there are no objective morals without God.
That's right. Disagree.
Yeah. So you see what my question is, though, right? In their mindset, it makes sense, but in yours, it doesn't. So you're going to reject their answer that their God can do whatever he wants because he's the giver of life, because you don't believe that. And so in the same way, when we as believers in God give over that answer to an atheist, they're going to say, I don't believe in your fairy tale God. So that's why I don't accept your answer.
Okay. So then you have to prove God exists.
Yeah, which is something that no one can actually do. I mean, I'm in theological conversations with philosophy bros all the time. It's not something that you can prove.
I think there is demonstrable philosophical evidence for God.
Yeah, but it's not going to be something that's going to convince every person. Like
that's
each person
true.
Each person has a particular thing that would convince them. So what you should do is you should say, before we have this conversation, what is the burden of proof, or at least the burden of probability? At what point, if I provide you with substantial amount of probable evidence, would you accept my God or the existence of any deity? Let that person then give it over to you. Here's the thing. Most of the time people are going to say, well, like miracles. And then you say, okay, well, there are miracles performed. And they go, no, miracles that I can see, feel, touch, and, experience. And then you kick back and say, well, how do you know that your brain isn't just hallucinating? How do you know that you're not a brain in a vat right now? How do you know the experiences that you're having right now, you are physically experiencing rather than being like a brain in a vat? Maybe right now, you're just a brain in a vat, and a scientist is like experimenting on you and causing your brain to experience what you think you're experiencing in real life. Like, so it becomes like a constant, infinite regress of questioning yourself and over again your reality. So that's the only way you can prove anything, is to cause them as well as yourself to question your own reality. So it all comes down to intuitions and probability.
Unless you believe that there's a basic sense of morality that exists outside of God validating it as right or wrong. Then...
really fast though, the only issue with that is they're just going to say, yeah, sure, I can say that there's a God particle that causes a basic sense of morality that each human should follow, but I could still say that develops out of something naturalistic and not a theistic position of a God.
No, right. No, it has nothing to do with God. God, that's the catalyst for him to be able to at least reward you for making the ultimate right religion decision of joining the right group or not. I mean, it exists outside of God, but like that,
Yeah.
we're able to make the argument against a Muslim that my God is better than your God because my God is more ethical, or my belief system makes a better person than your belief system, right?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but like if we're talking about whether or not there is a God with an atheist, appealing to Muslims versus Christians versus Jews isn't going to do much.
Yeah. I was talking about more like a Muslim, but you going up to a Muslim in some way, telling them that your whole lifestyle, your theology harms other people, but they're saying, but God told me to do this. So if God decides what right and wrong is, my God said this is allowed. Who are you to disagree with it? However, if you're able to prove that our God is more ethical, right? Like that ethics exists whether God approves it or not, it could get them to come to the conclusion that, you know what, like maybe what I'm doing, logically, ethically, it's wrong, even though the Quran tells me it's okay. It's like if following God is wrong, I don't want to be right. That type of thing. That
theoretically speaking, human to human interaction is considered very subjective, right? So some would say it's wrong to circumcise your child, right? That's like genital mutilation. Whereas others would say, no, I think it's not. Is it actually immoral? Right? In the same way that someone would say, is it actually immoral to own another human? So like when you say basic sense of morality, I agree there is, but I am grounding that. My axiom is God. It's very difficult to ground in some sort of axiom for which you actually don't believe that there is a higher authority than yourself that gives it. So when talking to someone about like, okay, if you're Christian or you're Jewish or whatever, that makes you more moral. Well, you have to ground that in something. Like, how are you cashing it out, in other words? Because if you're just going to say mine is better, according to whose standards? So you have to ground in a deity that is outside of your knowledge, meaning that has greater knowledge, that can give you over a better way of life. And so for atheists versus a believer, it's always going to come down to either God or a God-like particle. And I think a God-like particle falls flat on its face because of the fact that theoretically a God-like particle would, if it installed into us like Wi-Fi, the ability to know right and wrong, well, then it would also have some sort of protection against it. So like an invisible force field, like a guy tries to essay a female, it would naturally know, hold on, baby. It would naturally know that she is not accepting of his proposal. And then this force field should shove him back. You know what I'm saying? So the point being is naturalistic causes fall, whereas theistic causes don't.
Yes, that's why I called it a basic sense of morality. I never teach the Bible where God is there to make you good, but it's there to make you better. That means you won't be able even to see the difference, right? Unless you choose a belief system that makes you more sophisticated philosophically, right, to that level. And that is where religion comes in. However, a basic sense of morality, go right, go left, on the most fundamental issues of life, should I unalive this person? Should I be benevolent with this person? That can't be dictated by God on whether it's right or wrong, because it's the building blocks of coming to God, right? That's why, it's a basic sense. This is why where the Bible teaches us that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. It's not saying that necessarily fearing God, but saying that someone who doesn't believe in God doesn't know the difference, right? So that basic sense is enough to at least give you a foundation that later on, with the more sophisticated belief system, you can appreciate as superior, right? Or inferior to some other religion because God polished you up to that extent.
Yeah, but when you keep saying like the basic sense of morality, again, I agree, but I ground that in something. Okay, if I run an argument with you and I pretend to be the atheist, all I have to do is say, according to who? Like if you say, like a person that essays someone should be unalived, I would say, Who said? And you would say, well, I said. Well, I would say, well, I said, I don't think so. I think they should be able to get away with
Yeah,
it.
so it
I mean,
can't. In reality, for it to be that relative, then there's no hope for anyone. This idea,
correct.
okay, no,
Right,
so
which
then
is
I
why
don't
you have
believe
to
it's that
ground it in
relative.
God.
I mean, I believe an atheist does know on a basic level what right and wrong is. Okay, what they end up doing is blunting this moral compass of theirs, right? This basic moral compass to
Yeah.
allow more other things, or perhaps to not want any form of judgment in the future, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so then
But-
it doesn't have
but
to
why
be
do they
grounded
do-
in God
wait, but
initially.
why- Right, but why do they do that? When you say they blunt it, I call it a compass that has been pulled off of due north with a magnet, right? So they know what's right and wrong, the basic sense of morality, but they say they give over exclusions. Like, for example, it's acceptable to lie because of blah, 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 blah. Well, we know that there are certain incidences, according to the Bible, that it's acceptable to lie, to save a life. It's acceptable to do specific things, to preserve life, right? So we ground that in morality in God. They don't have anything to ground in. So do you see how whenever you say, yeah, but you're blunted,
No, I get it.
they could just go, that's according to your opinion.
So it's very similar to people saying that they're born a certain gender or like they're born a certain way. There's no such thing as being born atheist. Being that the movement as a religion, and I consider leftism the primary religion of atheists, is probably less than 200 years old, shows that essentially people who identify as atheists, not agnostics, but atheists, are wounded theists. Okay? They know and they're going against. All right, like Hebrew, we have the whole notion of misnagdim. They specifically exist to disorganize religion. They don't exist as a separate entity trying to necessarily make the world a better place. They may be trying to make the world a better place in spite of everything that has already been established by philosophers, theologians, and the Bible, right, to accomplish that task. They exist in spite. So this is why I don't believe them that when they say like, oh, well, to me, unaliving is okay, or to me, lying in every instance that's beneficial, that it's okay, right? I mean, they're liars because truth is not a value to them.
Well, those that you're speaking of are anti-theists. They are against theists.
That's
in
every
religion.
atheist.
No, not necessarily.
If they
There
were
are
honest,
atheists
they'd call themselves agnostic.
No, atheist just means you lack a belief in a God.
No.
If you're going to take it from
No,
yes,
okay.
yes.
No.
Okay. What does
Yes.
A mean?
Okay.
No.
Not in belief. In terms of atheist, meaning no God. They believe there is no
Right.
God. Now, to believe that there is no God, instead of saying that I'm not joining myself to any belief system because I don't know if God exists. Not knowing is not the same thing as not believing. Okay. I choose to believe in a God, and this is why I'm an optimistic agnostic. Right? We don't know. I think we're all agnostics. You can't prove that God exists. There's evidence on both sides, but you can't prove it. Right? So then we all choose to believe. We hope God exists because we see, how a good God in people's lives makes the world better. Right? To say that you're an atheist, but you can just call yourself an agnostic means that you have a chip on your shoulder.
No, I disagree with you. You can be an atheist, truly believe that there is no God, and not be against religion. I speak to an atheist all the time. He's like, no, I think a lot that religion has done has been good.
So what's the difference between that and an
I've already said the difference. An anti-theist is someone that doesn't want you or anyone else to believe in a God or a theistic type of God. Okay. An atheist just says, I don't believe in any God. Not an agnostic, which seemingly
there's no
says,
term as anti-theist, by the way. I mean,
what?
You've created that term.
No, I didn't. Google it right now.
No, it may exist today, okay? But throughout history, the term anti-theist wasn't used. The term atheist was used. Anti-theist.
Correct. However, but because there's a difference. Okay, there's a story in the Talmud. I can't remember where it's located, but maybe you know. Man sends his son up in a tree to go and get eggs. Right. The boy shoos away the mother bird. Right. And the boy is up in the tree to go get this. The boy falls and he's killed. Okay. So the father, Jewish father, and he's asking, he said, how could Hashem allow this to happen? My son was doing two of the mitzvot that guarantee a long life. If he, one, listens to his parents, he was listening to me by going to get the eggs, and two, shooing away the mother bird. Okay. Why then did God not preserve my son? So the Talmud states that this man became an atheist, no longer believed in God because of the promises of God, i.e., that you should have a long life, were not fulfilled in his son.
Okay, so that
I
term
don't
atheist,
remember where this
doesn't exist
wait.
there. I mean, yeah, but you're saying that he became an atheist. Only because you cease to believe in God doesn't mean you're an atheist.
Yes, it
No, it does
does.
not. There's many people who identify as agnostic because atheist is almost like a weaponized, angry, right?
Who
Pessimistic
cares?
agnostic.
That's today. That's because of the
Oh,
internet. Asher, can you acknowledge, Asher, come on, you're like making up new definitions of words. Can you at least acknowledge that there are atheists out there that go on living their life? You never know that they're atheists. They don't care to tell you that they're
agnostic.
atheists.
They're agnostic.
No, they're not.
Okay. They may identify.
disagree.
Okay. Virtually every atheist, okay, the majority of atheists that I've ever spoken to on this show, I've determined that they weren't truly atheists. They said, I'm just not convinced that God exists. Now, how do you define that?
Excuse me. Someone who does not believe,
They're
i.e., they're not convinced
that
in
God
a deity.
exists. Only because you're not convinced that God exists, that does not make them an atheist.
It makes their current position atheistic. Yes, it does.
Okay. You see how you rephrase that? Their current position as atheistic.
Yeah, because I'm not
We
going to
know
say
what
that
these
they
terms
won't
mean.
for sure eventually be convinced.
Every radical person who does not believe in God identifies as an atheist. Every reasonable person who doesn't believe in God will identify as an agnostic. Okay?
That's your personal opinion.
That's what we see. I mean, you're telling me Christopher Hitchens identified as an agnostic?
You make up your own statistics here on this.
Well, I mean, I'm not the one who invented the term anti-theist, right? I mean, to justify an idea that is probably less than 300 years old. Okay, there's no anti-theism. Anti-theism is atheism. That's what atheism. The idea that
yes, I agree. It is
no,
because
an atheist declares that there is no God.
Atheists.
There's difference with declaring there is no God and not even doubting that status. Right? If you ask the average atheist, do you ever doubt your atheism? They'll say no. The whole premise of being an agnostic means that you're in doubt, thus you're not taking a position. Right? I mean, only because people call themselves atheists now, and we may respect these people, they call themselves atheists because they know what that term typically means. Okay, a radicalized person who is trying to disenfranchise other religious people from their experience from God or whatever brings them joy in their life.
I don't live in that same world. I don't live in the world of making everyone other than myself a radical. Asher, I'm sorry.
I didn't say that. I mean,
it seems as though like it's either like your belief and there's like no middle ground. And I just don't live in that world.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure you take positions all day long, okay? And you do take a stand and say, you know what? Your position is the opposite of mine, thus it's radicalized. Come on, bro. I mean, don't make it seem like I'm the only one who does this. No.
I'm just saying, like, in this regard, you're being super pedantic on the definition while trying to say that there aren't like peaceful atheists out there. And you're saying, no. Let me tell you, you're not really an atheist. You're agnostic.
I didn't say there aren't any peaceful atheists. I didn't say that. I said.
I'm sorry, then I'm not understanding what it is that you're saying. I'll mute and let you like better explain.
No problem. If you think I said that every atheist is a radical, pessimistic agnostic, then perhaps you misunderstood what I said. Being an atheist nowadays means that you're anti the belief in God. That you're anti the belief in God. Not that you're not convinced either way, which is what the majority of people that I speak to, right, who don't identify as religious, classify themselves in. Now, if you have a Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Carl Sagan, Sam Harris, these are atheists. These are people who want not just not to be convinced that God will never exist in their mind, but they want you to stop believing in God and they want you to start doubting. That's different than someone who says, I'm not really taking a position. I can't call myself atheist or someone who believes in God because I'm just not convinced. Okay, that's the majority of the people. We can't call them atheists. Okay, these terms mean something today.
So it seems like you're taking an anecdotal position on everybody that you've debated. And sure, but like it doesn't mean that people aren't atheist, right? And it's like every time they're saying I'm atheist, you're going, but you're really not. You're really agnostic.
So explain the difference.
You can ask them.
You still haven't explained the difference between an agnostic and an atheist.
The definition is quite literal. No God. Theist.
No God.
God.
Right. It's as absurd as calling someone a theist, by the way, because saying that you're a theist.
But you're Asher. But I'm trying to get you to look at it from it. It's not a position
No, but
of
what's the difference?
I can prove. Okay. No. You're okay. I'm trying to explain it. You're trying to say it's a position which is provable, i.e., no God or theist, God. And that's not what they're saying. They're not saying I'm atheist, therefore I can prove without a shadow of a doubt there is no God. Their quote lack of belief in a deity makes them a theist.
What's
They
the
don't
difference?
believe there is a God.
Again, what's
Whereas
the
an
difference between
agnostic
that and-
is someone that is much more open and willing to say there is a possibility of a God, but I don't know which one would be the true God. So Muslims, Christians, Jews, Buddha, all of which God? How do I
so
know?
that's incorrect, by the way. Okay.
It's not. Google it
With the idea,
right now. Like read the definition, please,
no,
and then pull up the philosophical.
the idea that an agnostic saying there might be a God, right? Right? It might be Jesus, Buddha. That's not the position. An agnostic is someone who doesn't take a position because he doesn't know, which is essentially how you're describing an atheist. That's how you're describing an atheist. Atheist nowadays has been understood as someone who weaponizes everything around them to destroy God in other people's lives. We can't give people the benefit. You can't give people like this the benefit of the doubt.
Anti-theist.
That's a term you invented, or it's new.
I didn't invent
It's
that.
a new term, anti-theist. Okay, I get it, right? It makes sense that that's what that person is if that wasn't a new term. This is why throughout history they made a distinction between atheists and agnostics. Now, people who are more reasonable, less religious, because I consider atheists as religious people, they're so convinced that there is no God, as many Protestants are convinced that there is a God, or Jews or Muslims. Okay, that's a distinction. An agnostic seems to be reasonable, saying, if there is a God, prove it to me. That's the average person on TikTok. Okay, the person who actually tries to destroy your
but
faith.
you're using anecdotal. That's anecdotal. What you just said is so anecdotal. You keep going back to your own
Anecdotal.
personal anecdotal experiences. Do you know what anecdotal means?
Yes,
Okay.
like my own personal experiences, like you just said. Okay.
Yeah.
So by the simple fact that you're using other terms like anti-theist, all right, to classify a term that's a lot older than whoever invented that, means that that's anecdotal. That's what you may have seen because you came to the conclusion already that atheist essentially means agnostic.
No.
You described an agnostic as someone who doesn't care, if Jesus is God or Buddha's God or whoever is God. He just doesn't care. He doesn't join because he's not convinced. That's not an agnostic. Agnostic, yes, doesn't care, right? But in some way, that doesn't fight against the idea of someone going to church or saying Merry Christmas to them or Happy Hanukkah, right? An atheist does. An atheist is a wounded
No, not
theist.
all atheists.
Obviously not all.
Okay, what do you do then? Okay, but you keep saying my
I didn't say
anecdotal
all. I
experience.
didn't say all.
Okay, wait, but you kind of are by saying all that I have come into contact with do blank, 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 blank.
Yes.
Okay, what about those who I have come into contact with that say Merry Christmas back or Happy Hanukkah back? What do you do with those? But they also identify as atheists.
We're
You're just going
trying
to
to
say,
generalize
no,
here.
you're not.
The idea of an atheist, can you find me someone who fights against the notion of God who does not identify as an atheist but an agnostic?
No,
It
that's
doesn't exist,
stupid.
right? Every person who's a career atheist, he's a career activist in that field,
That's not what I'm
identifies as an
talking
atheist.
about.
An agnostic will be like, you know what? The people you're describing should be labeled agnostic. However, that doesn't get them the clicks and it doesn't get them the views. People like the term atheist because it's one that has already been radicalized. Why is Antifa not known for being agnostic?
But Asher, that's what I'm saying. You're like, it's been radicalized, so we need to just not call them atheists. We need to call them agnostics. That's stupid.
That
That's
position
like saying,
has become radicalized. Okay, I mean, the example I gave
but
was
what was the
Antifa.
original
Clearly,
position? What was the original position of an atheist? Because atheist is not like English. It comes
from Greek. I
Go
get
ahead.
it. A means no. That means no God. They make the declaration that just like a theist says that God exists, they say God does not exist. While an agnostic says, I don't know, thus I'm not taking a position.
right, but they say no God exists, and they hold that as their personal belief. Now, people that then go out and say no God exists, and if you ever say there is, I'm going to oppose you and battle you. Those have been lumped as atheists that are not only atheists, but they are anti-theist. They don't want anyone to believe in God.
But it sounds like you
You
disagree
have
with my
to-
position. So what you're saying that an atheist is not necessarily not just not convinced that God doesn't exist. He makes a declaration that for me, right, me, myself, God does not exist. That's not the same as an agnostic.
That's what I've been saying, bro.
Right. So the people, okay, online, the majority of people that I've met who have been labeled atheists are really agnostics.
That's fine, Asher. Like, I feel like
No,
you're.
it's very important that we
You
make
moved
these
the goalpost on me
distinctions,
here.
okay? Because those of the left, I'll tell you, those who are on the left rarely identify as agnostic. The agnostics are conservatives who don't believe in God or who are not convinced that God exists. There's
Okay,
a
so you
distinction.
agree with me now?
No. Oh, if people do not join a religion, okay, if they're not convinced of the Christian, Jewish, or Muslim God, but they're not hostile towards religion, they will identify as agnostic because they're just truly not convinced. However, an atheist says, no, there is no God, just as confidently as a religious person, as a theist will say there is a God.
Yep.
That's a problem.
No, it's not. Not for them. Maybe for you.
For us as religious people, because they target us. When Christopher Hitchens
They don't
wrote a
target
book called "That God Is Not Great," that's
Okay,
an atheistic position. It's not an agnostic
He's
position.
an anti-theist. Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Now, you can reinvent terms only because the term is used in the last 20 years. So you can say that's a position. Okay, there's atheism and agnostic, anti-theism. Okay, I'm not against the term, but you make it sound like it's.
Can you acknowledge that there are atheists that do not want you to drop your God? Yes or no? Are there atheists that don't want that don't care?
I'm sure. But not the
Okay,
majority.
so then why can't we come to an agreement on that?
No. You can't make a case on the minority of any specific group. We're
Why
trying
in
to
the
generalize.
actual heck do you
We're
say
trying
they're
to
a minority?
generalize. What? I mean, that's what you're saying. Clearly, I've met atheists who are really agnostics. Okay, clearly. I've met beautiful atheists. I could say the majority of atheists are on the left. Okay. Now, does that mean that every atheist is on the left? Obviously not. If you can't generalize, then you can't grow in wisdom.
I think we're just going to have to disagree.
I guess we'll have to disagree.
Great conversation,
The people who fight against my values and your values are typically not people who identify as agnostics. That's a fact. In the vast majority of cases.
Okay, hold on.
There are people who identify as atheists. Why?
Okay,
because the term atheist means that, you know what, your God does not exist. Instead of saying, I don't know.
Yeah. So people fighting against my values can be Orthodox Jews, can be Muslims,
we're talking about
can be Christians. But wait, that's what I'm saying, Asher. You keep categorizing everybody.
You're moving the goalpost here. And let's just talk about atheism and agnostics and your religion.
I can tell you that someone that is just as much of an enemy of my beliefs can be a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim in the same way as an atheist. So it isn't just, and I've done that. Don't Google it. I've already done it.
I'm saying
I've already told him to Google it.
Agnostics and atheists. The average person who identifies as an agnostic does not try to dismantle religion and your belief in God. It's atheists who are trying to take prayer to school, want nothing to do with biblical values, anything of biblical values, right? Seeping into mainstream society. This is an atheistical position. No God. That's their position. And agnostic says, you know what? I don't care who you believe God is. I'm just not convinced. That's
But you've
day
never
and
ran
night.
into an agnostic
What?
You've never ran into an agnostic that will fight you still that there's no God?
Yes. I mean, just like I've ran into atheists who are truly agnostics. It's because most people use these terms loosely. We have to, in order to define who our enemies are.
That's why I'm trying to be super pedantic about the atheists.
We have to define who our enemies are. The atheists do not deny that they're atheists in the vast majority of cases. Okay. When Antifa, BLM, when someone identifies as a Marxist, that means someone that if they had the choice, they would outlaw religion in society. That's not an agnostic. That's an atheist. And the way they push their religion is through leftism. So you're in some way defanging the monster here. The monster proudly identifies on the atheistical camp, not the agnostic camp. That's my point.
No, I understand your point. I'm just saying you're taking your own anecdotal experience, as I could do.
Anecdotal. I mean, who's the one saying all? Like, have you met? Like everyone you met.
Not.
No, you're
But there
saying
are statistics.
you're talking about the minority of people. I'm talking about the majority.
No,
of
how do
people.
you know what?
I mean,
how do
is
you
it
know that,
anecdotal?
Asher? Asher, how do you know that my position or my experience is the minority and yours is the proper and the majority? How do you know that?
Well, I'll tell you, as someone who dialogues, I think, with more atheists on religious topics than most people.
Really?
Yes.
Do you know how many rooms that I'm in, either on TikTok or Clubhouse,
No, I get it.
every
You know,
single day
yeah, but I've
with
been doing this
atheists?
for
It's at
20
this point
years.
that I dialogue with them more than I do religious people.
No problem. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I think, at least from the religious camp, I'm not in Christian Lives. I've debated more atheists than any Jewish person alive. And I've been able to articulate the biggest threat to the religious world, right, better than anyone, and that's atheism. Right? I mean, which is why, I align with Christians as they fight against atheists, while most Jews
So I
align
think
with atheists.
here's what I think you should do. Let's test this. I challenge Rabbi Asher Meza right now to come in dialogue with some of the brightest atheists on this TikTok app, and then migrate into Andrew's room on Clubhouse with me. You want to do it?
I'm not going to end this live just to do that.
No,
everybody knows that
you
I'm
don't
open
have
to
end
any
this
discussion.
Live. No. I mean,
yeah, but you're making it sound like I shy away from dialogues.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, I think that you need to expand your palette a little more to experience the philosophical, intellectual conversations that are happening between theist and atheist and agnostic people as well, in order to understand what it is that I'm trying to demonstrate.
You're trying to personalize it here. Okay, I'm making generalized statements, and I dialogue with atheists all the time, and I'm able. I'll tell you, the average religious person is shocked to hear me say that the biggest threat to religious people is atheism. They've never heard that from religious people, unfortunately. Right? I'm sure there are religious people who say it, because you'll say, oh, this person says it. Okay, it's rarely heard. Most Christians spend their time arguing with Christians. Most Muslims spend their time arguing with Christians. Most Jews spend their time arguing with Christians. Okay, the biggest threat is atheism. I'm able to distinguish friendly non-believers in God and hostile non-believers in God. Okay, and I even, invented a term within the agnostic camp, and I call them a pessimistic agnostic. It's someone who's not convinced but doesn't want to be convinced. Okay, like versus a friendlier. Well, I guess there's three. There's pessimistic agnostic, standard agnostic, and optimistic agnostic. I granted, I invented the first and the last. An optimistic agnostic is someone who's not convinced, but really would want to be wrong. The idea that if you ask an atheist, does he ever question his atheism, and he'll rarely say, yes, I do, means that they're more religious than the average religious person because they're confident that God doesn't exist. Well, I think if you ask the average honest religious person if he or she ever doubts her like his or her Judaism, Christianity, or Judaism, they'll be honest and say, yeah, I doubt it all the time. Okay, it shows that atheists are more religious in their ideology than religious people are. You can't compare them to agnostics.
No, so before, I just want to clarify for everyone in the chat that's like white knighting for you. I'm just telling you right now that I feel as though there are many conversations that you're not privy to because you're kind of within your...
I'm talking about the majority. I mean, I'm not...
Asher, I'm begging you.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not saying that every atheist thinks like this. I'm saying the position, when people identify as an atheist, they're hostile to religion.
The people that are typically on this app with like their backdrop saying, God isn't real, fight me, bro, stuff like that. Of course, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm saying that the actual the terms that we use, atheist, doesn't necessitate that if I identify as an atheist, then that means I'm hostile towards your religion. What that normally means is I personally don't believe, for me and mine, that there is a God, right?
Incorrect.
Now,
I mean, that's where we differ. That's where we differ.
Yeah, I guess. So I'm okay with landing here if you are.
No, I'm saying that is specifically where we differ. I mean, for anyone who came late to the room, I mean, and I'm not disagreeing that some people see it that way, but traditionally, I mean, from the 70s, we have tons of debates of atheists, not agnostics, atheists, right?
Okay, but Asher, stop. Okay, why though? Why are they doing this? Stop and think. What does an atheist say? When you ask them, when you say, why is my religion a threat to you? Why is my belief in a God a threat to you? What do they say? They say, because of the way that you vote, because of the fact that you vote to take away women's rights. And I believe a woman should have the right to unalive a baby. So what does it always come down to? ethics. It doesn't come down to belief. It doesn't mean, oh, well, I have a problem with the fact that you believe in a higher deity and I don't. None of that is the problem. Every single problem always stems with societal effect of atheism or theism. That's where it comes down to.
Okay. Values, for sure. Absolutely.
Correct, but that doesn't equate that there is no such thing as an atheist who says,
I didn't say there
care.
isn't. I said in the majority of cases, the idea, whenever someone identifies as an atheist, not anyone, the vast majority of people throughout history since that term was ever used, is someone who's hostile to religion. He's saying God does not exist instead of saying I don't know and I don't care. That's the agnostic position. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that you can't have atheists who take the agnostic position, but that's typically not how the phrase or term is used. The difference is there aren't enough people today making a distinction. So you have well-meaning, right, agnostics stuck in atheist groups because they've been convinced by people like you, essentially, that there is essentially no difference.
By people like me.
I mean, respectfully, right, that there is no position. I mean, there's no distinction. Right. So is there a distinction or is there not a distinction between an agnostic and an atheist?
Yes, a distinction is that a theist is a person who has or lacks a belief in a deity, not someone who's just not convinced yet, right? They just, in that moment, they lack belief, okay? An agnostic is someone who says, there could be, me personally, I don't know which one is the actual high deity or if there is such a high deity. That's the difference.
Okay, so it's
You're
funny how
trying
you
to
define
demonstrate
atheism literally and agnostics like in a paraphrased manner. Okay, agnostic means no knowledge of.
No,
right?
Okay, correct. Yes,
Okay.
no knowledge of.
So,
Meaning,
what's the
I
difference?
don't know, but I thought I demonstrated that. I don't know which deity is proper.
No, not which deity is proper. If a deity exists at all, that's the actual position, right? The actual position of not believing in God is the agnostic position. And atheist means no God. Just like a Christian or like a theist position is yes God, an atheist is no God. Not just for me, but ultimately, if I had it my way, for you too. That's a distinction. And that's how typically...
But the difference, though, the difference is the colloquial use, as you keep trying to appeal to, because that's what you want to do, is you want to appeal to colloquial use of the way that atheists tend to identify as, right? If we're going to do that, the parameters of atheist, it overlap, which is why you do have some people say, I'm atheist agnostic, or I'm atheist agnostic. No knowledge indicates that a person is skeptical about whether or not there even could be a God and what that would look like and how they would know. That's what no knowledge means. Agnostic. Yeah. Okay. So with I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What did you say?
I agree. I concur.
Okay. Yeah. So if we're going to be pedantic about the definition, then the difference is it's like a public declaration of one's personal beliefs. Atheist, no God. For me, there's no God. Okay. Agnostic, no knowledge. I don't know if there's a God. So I don't necessitate that a person that says atheist for me equals that they are immediately against me. I know some atheists that have the same values that I do. What do you do with those?
Why do you say some? I'm not talking about those. Those people do not enter this conversation. We're talking about, we're generalizing. Okay, this is
I
the
know
only way.
You generalize everything, and
we have to generalize big picture. We have to focus on big picture. Okay, are there some atheists who incorrectly believe in God but don't know what the term atheist means? Obviously, there's people who still believe Elvis is alive. I'm talking about if you ever see anyone debating religion, right? I'm going to prove to you that your God does not exist. That person.
That's not who I'm talking about.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about. I concede
to that.
That person. Okay. So you're conceding
I've conceded to that
that person will almost always identify as an atheist and not an agnostic.
No, that's not true though. Because I interview. No. That part is not true. I know many of them.
Always,
I was just engaging with one on
Just generalize a little bit.
Okay, and I'm trying to. I don't know the numbers, but yes, a lot of them identify as atheists. But I do know many, and I'm not kidding. I can think of like 6 of them right off the top of my head from Clubhouse that identify as agnostic. But they think our God is the bad guy because of slavery and the R word. They look at your God.
That's our God, yeah, but not the idea of God in general.
Right. They're agnostic.
Right.
The agnostic part is that they don't like our God.
So
And I
let's
say, okay,
generalize a
which
little
God?
bit.
And I've had
Okay.
these
You
conversations.
see, you think that by generalizing, by trying to generalize, you're conceding to my argument. Okay, which
No,
I mean,
I'm
so just
actually,
attempt
I've
to
done
generalize.
that, like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, but you're
into
saying I could think of
conversation.
8 people, but then at the same time, like you said, well, they weren't really attacking the idea of God, but the idea of our God. Okay, let's make a distinction.
No, they attack the idea of God, yes, but they identify as atheist or agnostic, not atheist.
Is that the
These people that
majority?
I'm just-
Like, you need statistics, like, in order to come to that conclusion.
I don't know. I'm generally saying
use
I don't
common
know
sense.
if they are the majority in the room. No, because it's very difficult sometimes to
Come
distinguish
on, man.
between
I
the
mean,
two.
so this is why.
Asher, could you listen to me and not like I'm
All right,
tr-
go ahead.
I cannot sometimes tell the difference between an atheist and an agnostic when in a formal debate or in a conversation with people who want to debate religion. Like, I'll go, yeah, you're atheist, right? And he goes, actually, I'm not. And I'm like, okay, what do you identify as? Why? I identify as agnostic. And I'm like, why? I'm like, which God is the most probable and the one that you feel like you have the most knowledge of? They say things like, oh, I really like Thor, or I like the Valhalla. And the reason why they do that is because they're like, that God seems like a cool dude,
Yeah.
right? Your God seems like an angry God, mean God, mad at me because I've got a cousin that's I don't want to get your live. You know.
All right, look, I think that atheism is to agnosticism what fanaticism is to religiosity. That means
Hold on. Atheism is to agnosticism. What is to fanaticism?
what fanaticism is to standard religiosity. They both share the component of not concluding that there is a God. However, one takes, his whole message is that there is no God, while the other one says, I have to be honest. Because we know he's being honest, because you can't prove that God does exist or doesn't exist. There's evidence on both sides. One is being honest, which is typically why most people who identify as agnostics, right, and belong to any party, will typically become Republican. While most people who identify as atheists, by definition, are on the left, because the left almost exists to destroy everything that the right holds dear as some sort of conservative value. Okay, so that's the difference. They both share the component that they're not actively religious, okay, with our specific God. However, one says there's no God for nobody, and the other one says, I'm not convinced enough of any belief system to declare a God for myself. This is why, as someone who fights the left, I rarely, right, if ever, confronted a leftist who didn't believe in God, because there are leftists who do believe in God, who didn't identify as an atheist. It's equivalent to not caring about racism and being an anti-racist, by the way. Because nowadays, not caring about racism is not enough. You have to be anti-racist. That means you have to, in some way, hunt down who the left tells you are the enemies. That's the difference. And if we don't call things what they are, if we can't classify our enemies, right, point them out in the battlefield, then we'll never win the battle. That's my point.
And I understand your point. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand the shift between the semantics of like atheist and then anecdotal, and then appealing to it like an anecdotal position of all the atheists on this app. This app is kind of known to kind of be like Clubhouses, like a debate platform. You're pushing your ideas, and yeah, it just so happens to be that a lot of people that are against religion, like, you're not going to find a theist that's you're not going to find a theist that's anti-theist. Like, this is stupid. That doesn't even track, right? So, of course, the ones that tend to be
Say that again?
Say
that again? Like, you're not going to find a theist who
that's anti-theist. Like, you're not going to find a believer in God that's anti-theist, meaning against religion. Now, what you will find is someone that's against like formal, like structured religion, right? Something like that. And they prefer more like kumbaya, everybody just sit and hold hands and nothing structured. But the point is you're taking like an anecdotal experience while using like a semantic.
Okay, anecdotal means like it happened to me only. No.
It just means that you're taking, not only you, it could be anecdotal for like 1 million people, which ends up being statistics. But what I'm saying is, like, you start in the pedantic, semantic, like, conversation, atheist, but then you end in the anecdotal. And I understand why you're doing that. But the reason why you're doing that is because you say every atheist I've ever encountered has been against religion
Oh, that's
on
for
this
sure.
app.
I mean, for
But
myself,
the app
that's
is-
anecdotal. However, I said in the vast majority of cases, and I would challenge you, right, to bring like some examples. Anyone that I've ever seen, I'm sure anyone has ever seen online attacking religion, your belief in religion, okay,
Yes,
rarely
okay, now
has
stop
ever
in the-
identified as an agnostic, but an atheist.
Oh my God, they're all over Clubhouse. That's what I'm telling you. I disagree with.
Okay.
They are literally.
So
Asher,
they're
you
equal.
just asked
I mean,
me
so
to
it's equal.
demonstrate.
Okay.
I will give you names of people. Like, and come, follow me. I will show you the room. They are all in.
All right. So
They're everywhere in Andrew's
it's up to the
room.
audience to decide. Okay, it's up to the audience to decide for what I think is your argument that they're more prevalent that I claim that they happen to be, right? I mean, I just don't see them. I just don't see
I
them.
do see a lot of, and the problem though is you can't distinguish them sometimes because they're looking for debates. They're wanting to talk. The only time I think I can distinguish them until like they speak is the agnostic ones stay silent more, right? They're sitting in the room, they're listening to me as like an apologist, talking about, parts of the Bible, talking with a Muslim or Orthodox Jew, and they're just sitting, right? They haven't really made an opinion publicly on whether or not my position is more convincing. But then whenever they ask a question, they go, well, what do you do with this position versus this part in the Bible and the Quran? And so we talk about it, and I go, well, are you an atheist? And they're like, actually, I'm agnostic. And so then and only then can I make a distinction.
Wait a minute.
But I'm thinking, I just seen you in here yesterday arguing against religion. So there seems to be that bridge, and I understand that.
There seems to be confusion because they don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. But this is why I say you're never going to find a theist that is, quote, anti-theist on this app. So the only ones you're ever going to run into that are against your religion or any religion at all will identify as atheist. Do you understand what I mean by that?
No. Incorrectly identify. That's the point, that they're incorrectly identifying as atheists. I was curious to see what the actual root of atheism actually is, right? Because we just say atheist, right? But in Greek is atheos, which means without gods in general, right? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no gods.
Right, no gods, but it's not no knowledge of gods. So the distinction is massive.
I know what
distinction
you're
is
doing.
massive.
I'm
pretty sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm pretty sure.
Can you please just let me acknowledge and show you that I know what you're saying? You're saying that an atheist position is there is no gods. Shut up, Christian. Shut up, Orthodox Jew and Muslims. You do not have the proof. There is no God. There it is. No gods. I'm telling you, it's definitive. 100% for me and for you. Okay? And an agnostic is saying, I personally don't have knowledge of any God, your God, that God, this God, don't know, right? So your position is anyone who battles, speaks against gods are by nature agnostic, meaning they're unsure, right? I don't know because I don't have the knowledge. But the atheistic people are the ones that are coming against the religious people. Did I properly represent? Sure. Okay. So I understand why you're saying the definition of atheist. And by the way, atheists argue over this definition all the time. And if Danny would come up, bro, come up. I've already invited him like a million times. Come up. I think he will be able to substantiate the point that I'm making. Like atheists will say it is this, and then they'll get more nuanced with it and what it means. So yeah. By the definition of no gods, it's like a big slap in the face to anyone that believes in gods. I understand what you're saying.
That's anecdotal. You've been the one bringing up anecdotal circumstances. And all I'm saying, think about every time you thought of this. I'm speaking about the majority. In the vast majority of cases, agnostics do not attack religious beliefs. Agnostics don't try to shut down any religious initiatives in society, but only atheists. Now, are there exceptions? Yes, there's confusions all over. Okay, there's Christians who identify as Muslims, and according to Muslims, we're all Muslim, right? There's confusion all over. However, big picture, the enemies of religious people are atheists, not agnostics.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm just going to have to disagree. I think agnostics, like the reason why I say this though, is because at least with an atheist, you know what you're dealing with. With an agnostic, they're like kind of so unsure that you may sit in a room with them for like a million years and be like, this guy is totally, with me. He hasn't come against me. But then he low key doesn't believe in your God. And when he does come against you, he's sat in the room and he's listened to all of your points and he finally rises up and speaks against you. So when you want to talk about values, I know both atheists and agnostics that share my values. And then if I say that, you say, but that's not the majority. And I'm like, okay, well then how can you personally identify an atheist versus an agnostic if you're sitting in a room of 100 people and the vast majority are atheist and agnostic? How do you personally identify between the two? Personally, you.
I didn't get what this last segment didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense to me. I don't know, like if other people, this last sentence made sense, but the whole paragraph didn't make sense. I mean, in the beginning.
I'm saying like.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, in terms of you sharing.
How do you identify the personal difference between the two? If you're sitting at 8, I think agnostic can be more dangerous too. You're worried about danger, right?
Agnostic is more dangerous than an atheist
on the battlefield.
Practicality?
Yes, listen to me. That's what I'm telling you. Like if you're talking about battlefield people, at least with an atheist, he's got a red flag on his back, basically walking around going, hey, yo, I'm fighting you on this, right? I openly disagree with your God. An agnostic is running around going, I don't know which God I'm convinced by. So if you're talking about which one could infiltrate people more, it's going to be an agnostic.
So anyone who comes to religion, like no matter which religion it is, right before he came to that religion, right? I mean, assuming he didn't have another religion, he at that point was an agnostic because he wasn't convinced. Then he became convinced. You're going to say that person is less of a threat than someone who actively tries to eradicate, I mean, anything that we hold dear that we can extract from the Bible, right? I mean, honestly, this is why. This is a disagreement that we have. Yeah.
I don't think you're understanding my point.
I don't think you're understanding my point, then, right?
I actively repeated.
An atheist is less of a threat than someone who identifies as an agnostic. You said
less of a threat to who?
To religious people.
And what? And why? Why do I believe that?
Because an atheist tries to destroy the idea that God exists for other people as well. And
okay, fine. Let's say I'm going with that. But can you identify who that is on the quote battlefield, as you said? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean the person fighting against religion. Most agnostics don't fight against religion.
Okay, but this is where I disagree with you.
This
is where I disagree.
So you believe most agnostics, most people who identify as agnostics, attack the idea that God exists?
The ones that are actively on this app, yes.
Okay, so then till today, I mean, I can't remember someone coming onto my show saying, I don't believe in God, thus I'm an agnostic.
Why did he come on your show, first of all? Why did he come up to challenge you?
Well, because...
There you go.
Okay. We're going to have to disagree with this. I mean, it's just that we're going in circles. I mean, clearly, people who come onto my show come here to debate religion, but you're saying that agnostics debate religion as much as atheists do. And this is why anyone who knows the major anti-God individuals don't know anyone. I mean, unless you could think of one who's prominent who identifies as an agnostic. Agnostic essentially means that you're reasonable, right?
That's okay, Asher.
You're coming to your conclusions because of lack of belief or knowledge of something. While an atheist says, no, I believe, right? I have faith that there is no God. That's essentially the difference. Okay.
That's okay. We're done.
All right, we're done. And this is not the first time I think we've had this discussion, by the way. Right?
Really? I can't remember if it's.
And I know that it frustrates many atheist people, because essentially what they want agnostics to stay within their camp. Because what typically an atheist does when he gets around a true agnostic is try to proselytize that individual into atheism. Okay.
Oh, sure. I mean, I have no problem with that. But the danger is that they typically remain silent for much longer, right? I'm saying the loudest one in the room is the one that everybody can identify as the threat. The one that isn't loud is the one that people don't know is the threat. And yet they still hold 90% of the same beliefs as an atheist.
Incorrect. Incorrect. Are you kidding me?
That's okay. Okay, that's
that's
fine.
where we're going to disagree.
If you can come in, that is the core of our disagreement, and that's okay. But I would challenge you. I think it would behoove you to come to Clubhouse, and you don't have to debate with the Jews. Like, forget the Jews there. Okay, come and say, come into Andrew's room. You will see a ton of agnostics as well as atheists, and just ask them. Say, I'd like to poll the room. Who currently identifies as an atheist versus who currently identifies as agnostic. These rooms go on for days at a time. There's one I visited this morning. It's still open, Andrew's room. So if you would like to come, just let me know. And I'll introduce you to Andrew and Rob and Himothy.
That's fine.
And
you're talking about a Clubhouse room. And I gave an example.
But it's a massive.
Does anyone know? I gave an example. Does anyone know a prominent anti-religious individual online or in the media who attacks religion, right? Anti-religious individual, but identifies as an agnostic. And I could almost guarantee that the majority of people in the room will be like, no, they almost always identify as atheist. Okay. Yeah,
but that's because you can't tell them apart unless you ask them their personal belief. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay. And the agnostics that I've met, I've considered a lot more reasonable than the atheists that I've met.
Okay, maybe reasonable in your mind, but why the heck are they on your page trying to debate you? Why did they come up here trying to debate you?
In person on my page.
That's what you've not answered.
Most agnostics who come up here don't come here to debate me, by the way. Okay? They'll come to talk. Right? I mean, I consider Buddhists to some extent a form of agnosticism, or even like the Baha'i movement. I mean, to some extent. Now, once you have so many gods and you can't really determine who's the actual lawgiver here or who's setting the standard, from that perspective, that's almost a form of agnosticism. Fine. However, I've zeroed in on the enemy, and the enemy is the atheist, not the agnostic. And that's where we differ. That's another area where we differ, by the way.
What?
That's another area where we differ.
I think we differ in the semantic application of it. I don't think I agree with you in the general sense. I can concede that what you're saying is true. My difference is I just don't know how to tell them apart whenever you're in these rooms, because I don't know if I'm running into an agnostic or an atheist on the road when they're like, no, I don't believe in a God. And most of the time it's because when I say, do you believe in God? The atheist and the agnostic both have in their mind the Christian God. 9 times out of 10, I will tell you, because that's the world's largest religions, the 3 Abrahamic faiths. That's what they believe in it. Like, they're like, oh, you're asking me if I believe in your God. And so they're like, no. And I'm like, so you don't believe in any God? They're like, well, I'm actually agnostic, so I don't really know. So I think that's the problem, is because the backdrop of their previous notions and ideas of, quote, God are Christian God. Right? Or Jewish God. Not
for the average atheist, not the one you meant. The average atheist will make the statement that belief in any God is stupid. Right? I mean, that's...
No, I agree. Atheist. No,
right. So that's how you make the distinction. Yes, they both share that component.
Conversation.
They both share the component that they don't believe in God. So would you say it's easier to convince or convert an agnostic individual or an atheist?
Oh, it's easier to convince and convert an agnostic. I agree with that. I've already agreed with that.
Okay. But so why are they a bigger threat?
Why what?
Why are they a bigger threat?
Because I'll relate this to Judaism. Is it a bigger threat to have a Christian that's outright with a cross crucifix on their neck and they're, oh, praise Jesus, blah, blah, and they're all jumping around in Orthodox, outside of an Orthodox shul? Okay. So is that the dangerous guy? The one that you can target and know instantly is a different religion or faith? Or is the one that's more dangerous the guy who puts on a yarmulke and goes in on Shabbos and low-key believes in Jesus, but absolutely is not going to outright tell you because he's a little confused? I don't know.
That's a weird comparison. It's a weird comparison.
But it's not a weird comparison. The reason why I say it this way is because this person who's like, I'm testing the waters between whether Jesus is God or whether Jesus is not God. Is Jesus Hashem, or is he a separate God? But I'm going to go into an Orthodox shul and I want to daven. I want to do all the things because I need to know. right? I'm just lurking. I'm just in the backdrop. You would say, and Tovia Singer obviously believes, that the second guy is more dangerous because you can't know whether or not he truly is for you or against you, right?
Okay.
That's why I say, however, Asher, the second guy, if you rightly identify him, then you could say, brother, let me teach you. And you can bring this person in and you can teach them what you feel like is the truth. But the other guy standing outside going, praise Jesus, Jesus is, you know.
I mean, I didn't even know how to respond to it because it's such a weird that you have both, like, two Christians. Well, you're basically saying that.
Yes.
Like a Catholic.
I related it to Judaism so that you could understand. It's just
I know, but it's just a comparison. I mean, it's a bit absurd. I mean, I get it that it's a form of religious fanaticism, right? I mean, he stands out. An agnostic stands out from an atheist. That an atheist wants everyone to come to his conclusions, while an agnostic is just not convinced. And he may take a more pessimistic position today, a more optimistic position tomorrow, but he doesn't make any public declarations. Public declarations in the area of faith are a problem. It's better to just say that you don't know, but you hope, based on your evidence, than to make some sort of declaration that, you know what, because God doesn't exist for me, I don't want him to exist for you either. Here, which is the fanatical atheistical approach. Like, I'm trying to think, when did people even start identifying as atheists? Because it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing. However, agnostic, and I think people were
Just
agnostic.
Jim is here. He would probably know. He's an atheist. Last I remember, hold on. He might be agnostic, but I'm pretty sure he identifies as an atheist because I've spoken to him before. But I mean, do you understand the comparison and why? I don't know why you would say it's a weird comparison. The reason why I gave that comparison is just so it's easy to know who to be aware and avoid if their target is on their back, that they are what they openly say they are. Whereas someone who lurks and has 90% of the same beliefs as the person outside, i.e. this Christian who has now come into the Jewish faith and he wants to learn more about davening and he wants to learn more about like shuls and yarmulke and talit and everything. Like he just wants to learn more, but he still holds on to his belief. Orthodox Jews, like Rabbi Singer would say, that person is more of a threat than the person outside that he can rightly identify. And I know that you don't see that person as a threat, right? Because you're like, hey, prime time to come and bring him into our faith. But that's only if you know him, know that that's what he is.
No, that's not the issue I'm having. I mean,
okay, what's the issue?
I could acknowledge that person is a threat to some level, but what's the bigger threat? I'm looking on the macro issue.
You're thinking
so the macro issue while we're deciding.
No, I agree.
Like between this Catholic bishop out there with a big cross and this Messianic Jew entering a synagogue, but the atheist has already shut down your synagogue, right? I mean, I'm talking about big picture.
You're talking about morals, ethical,
no,
how
society,
they vote.
Bigger picture. Like who's the bigger threat? Atheism is the biggest threat in this world. The biggest threat. There's more Jews who go astray because of atheism than any other ism out there. Okay, and for some reason, Jews are wasting their time arguing with Christians. Right? That's the biggest threat.
With you.
I mean, not Messianic Jews. I mean, because that's, I mean, a better comparison. I mean, should the Jewish person worry more about the Messianic Jew, right? Who is Jewish but has incorporated the belief in Jesus, or the atheistical Jew, the atheist Jew, who says God doesn't exist for me, but I don't want him to exist for you either, so I'm going to legislate that into existence.
I get it. I understand. I get that. That's the point. And the reason why we've developed a term called anti-theist is because these, quote, anti-theists are against having Christians, quote, infiltrate the community and say, this is the politics now. We're going to sway this back towards like the way that we feel like things should go, which means no blank marriage.
I don't think that you needed that term when you had the term atheist. It in some way gives atheists a pass. When you keep on creating these extra terms, right? Of course, someone's just going to say, no, I'm an atheist. When atheist was already a weaponized, a loaded term, which meant anti-everything religious, right? That's it.
Okay. We're just going in circles at this point.
Obviously. We are. It's not about convincing you. It's about convincing the audience, obviously. So
I know, but it comes down to like anecdotes. It just.
I think every example you gave, including Clubhouse, was anecdotal. which is fine. But
No,
now we're
I'm
talking
just
about
giving
big
you back
picture
an
things.
anecdote compared to yours.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about big picture. My whole thing was big picture consequences. Okay?
Yeah, but it's big picture based in what you believe. Like you think.
I'm generalizing with examples.
Yeah, generalizing left versus right politics.
And there's something wrong
Right?
with that. And I think people in life, things either confirm the obvious when you're dealing with any form of statistics, or are typically wrong. This is why I challenge the audience to think of a public speaker who attacks religion and identifies as agnostic.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
This is why I challenge people to think of a public speaker, if there is one. There may be one or two. I'm just not familiar with it. Who attacks religion and religious beliefs and values and identifies as an agnostic and not an atheist.
I've already told you that would be very difficult to do.
I mean, I asked
or
the
anyone
audience that.
because of the fact that I don't know why the atheists are remaining so silent. Danny, bro, what's up with you? I think it's because
Sure,
it's
I mean,
hard.
you're like pandering to the atheists, like.
No, I'm not
They should give you
pandering. I
special
don't dance for
treatment because
nobody,
you
bro.
gave them
I don't
special
dance for
treatment.
nobody. I
Yeah,
dance for
I don't whitewash
literally
atheism
nobody.
at all.
I don't dance for anybody. I'm just telling you that he can, I think, to attest to at least some of this. But like, I'm not an atheist, right?
Fine.
He's an atheist.
This is
So
not the
what
first time
I'm-
I've had this discussion. I mean, with you, it is probably, but there's
What?
many people who want to blur the lines, and I don't know why.
I'm not trying to blur the lines. I'm not. I'm telling you that lines were. Why do you think lines were created? Why do you think that an atheist goes, wait, I'm not an anti-theist? Why do you think that must have been created?
That's a new phrase. Anti-theist is a relatively new phrase.
But why do you think it was created? Because there are atheists
To
that
help
go,
blur
hey,
the
yo,
lines,
man, don't be lumping me into your
To help
crap.
blur the lines, because now we no
Do you
longer
think
have
so?
to worry about
You
the
think
atheist.
that's truly what it is?
Yes, because now we have to worry about the anti-theist. So the atheist could in some way operate with other people thinking that he's just not convinced when he is someone who's there. I mean, Congress, people who are typically, not always, vote for the opposite side, rarely, when they're passing laws to strip away our rights, rarely identify as agnostic. They're wounded theists, essentially, right? I mean, that's my personal, that could be
I think a lot of
anecdotal.
them are, and
Okay,
I've
but
told
they're
them that.
atheists. They don't want you to believe in God. They don't want society to believe in God because they believe that believing in God makes society worse. This is an atheistical person. Atheist. That's it. If you can't call out the enemy, okay, you won't be able to fight the enemy. But in your opinion,
I mean,
being agnostic is a bigger threat and more of an enemy to our religion than atheism.
But in what sense? It's like you're forgetting to use the sense that I'm using it in.
I agree with the example you gave.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not
That's
a
all?
macro
That's it.
example. It's a micro example.
So anti-theist, according to just a quick Google search, came around in the late 1700s.
Okay. That's quite recent.
You do understand that that's older than some aspects of Judaism, right?
The 1700s? Well, not the Judaism.
Yes, like Reform.
I don't know how that changes anything. Right?
So, I mean, because that's a statement of showing a distinction being made and the reasons for that distinction. I think that's the earliest, in early 1600s, according to Oxford English Dictionary.
Right. I mean, it's relatively
1627.
New. I mean, to the term atheist, that goes back to ancient Greek, meaning atheos. Right. It's still relatively new, and by the simple fact that only because it may have been coined at that time, the reason people make a distinction today, just like they make a distinction as being anti-racist and just being not racist, right? It's because
means not. It's the same thing. Against.
Anti-racism, as used by the left, is that if you're not actively trying to fight against racism, then you can't truly call yourself a non-racist.
Oh, yeah. If you're not out, I get it. Okay, white knighting. Right. I understand.
And so it's equivalent to atheists nowadays, right? Antifa identifies as atheist, not agnostic, right? Because there's a distinction in that personality. That's it. We're dealing with personalities here because we're all in the same boat. We can't prove that God exists. We can't prove that God doesn't exist. There's some people out there that if something brings you joy, right? I mean, if something helps you live longer, right? Gives you some hope and purpose in life, they want to destroy that for whatever reason, right? typically because they are wounded theists or they're wounded to some extent, that's an atheist. That's the enemy. While an agnostic, okay, that person could be swayed either way. So we should make our effort that we should pour tons of effort to get people on the fence. And that's the agnostic. You can't say that they're interchangeable.
I think I can, but I've told you based on, the way they behave, it's very difficult to identify them until you get them to say, I'm agnostic. And the fact that you've had agnostics on your page here indicates that they are actively out trying to persuade people.
Not everybody here is here to debate me, by the way. I mean, some people ask questions and they want to know. And as a matter of fact, we started this live like this. I mean, some guy read the banner and asked me why it would benefit him in his life. And I said, what religion do you belong to? He says, I don't belong to any religion. All right. And then I went through my whole spiel. That's an agnostic. Now
Wait, he said, I don't belong to any religion, and you automatically assume that means agnostic?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Because his whole presence wasn't one of challenging me. He didn't know, and he wanted to be convinced otherwise. Hold on one second. He wanted to be convinced otherwise. Religious people, fanatical individuals, cannot be convinced because they're as convinced that God exists as an atheist is convinced.
So why can't they be unconvinced and not a part of any religious? Asher, can you not see your bias?
I'm giving examples to whatever you consider to be a bias. Okay. Now, can that individual, all right, in some way hold radical beliefs? For sure he could. I'm saying in the vast majority of cases, atheists are actively on the offensive trying to dismantle everything religious in society.
What if that guy was an atheist, but yet he wasn't actively trying to dismantle anything?
He would be the exception.
So how many exceptions are there in Asher Meza's world?
There you go. All right. Next topic. I'm all big picture, and it might be the feminine versus the masculine here in terms of how we see the world. Big picture, instead of just because people are so valuable because we know certain people, we don't want to label those valuable people, some derogatory terms. So we give them the benefit of the doubt to such an extent that we end up redefining who the enemies actually are and whitewashing them and blurring the line. So we end up actually at the end of the day fighting the wrong people. That's it. All right, next topic. Different grades of gasoline. I remember when I was in Denver, they had 85 octane. I don't think they have that anymore. I mean, it may have been because of the altitude.
So, hey, did you see my video? I guess rebuking Rudy Rochman.
Oh, was it rebuking him? I thought it was praising him.
Heck no. I think he's destroying Judaism.
Yeah. So he. I mean, I did see the video, and I saw where he attacked the West for colonialism and all this crap, and then he, in some way, he's not a religious Zionist. No religious Zionist would say what he said, because he was saying that he wants basically Palestinians to be able to live in Israel, come from Gaza to Israel, and Jews to go from Israel to Gaza, to see both sides of the story. I mean, that makes sense for someone who doesn't live in Israel, right?
He lives in Israel.
No, right, I understand. But so because he does, or he claims to live in Israel, it's kind of hard to think that if you take a Muslim from Gaza and you put him into Israel, perhaps he doesn't launch an attack at that point, because they're only 20% of the population, but their hope is to become 60% of the population to take over the country because of their religion. So that's the disconnect that I sort of picked up from the video, that there was a bit of, I don't know, naivete on his part. He said yes. But maybe he was just intimidated because he was surrounded. I mean, it's hard to talk to so many people and not try to sound diplomatic.
No, I think the video that I'm specifically, no, not the one that I shared. I'm talking about the one that I posted where he says that Mashiach is not a person. And he's not talking about, he's definitely trying to play off of Yemot HaMashiach, but he's not, he's improperly using it. right? And so I posted the video where I'm like, why are you appealing to Jewish literature while simultaneously undermining it? Like you're destroying Judaism, authentic Judaism, as opposed to what you think like the West is doing, because he hates the West. He's like, the West isn't going to do anything to help us. Okay, fine. You figure out your own business, Palestinian versus Israeli conflict, but don't appeal back to your literature as if that's the source for why you believe what you believe, when it's clear that your panentheism is what is, I guess, determining your beliefs. And so I posted the video, and there was an Orthodox, I presume he's Orthodox, I shouldn't say that. He identified as a religious Jew living in Israel, and he says, yes, I agree with your criticisms of Rudy Rachman, because the fundamentals that he speaks does undermine Judaism, right? By stating that there is no Messiah, that is just an era only. No Messiah whatsoever, era only, and yet appeals to like the Talmud, when we know that the Talmud discusses like Yomot HaMashiach, but also Mashiach.
Yeah, I think that most religious Jews, when they hear Rudy Rachman speak in behalf of Judaism, they cringe.
I think so too.
I don't think that was ever what his appeal. Where did he start off? I'm trying to think.
It was so funny though. The interviewer was Jewish, and he kept trying to get him to say the right answer. He was like, "You mean like the days of the Messiah, right?" And then like Rudy was like, "No." Like he straight up was like, "Maybe." He's like, "You mean that we have to do teshuvah and tikkun olam, and we have to bring in the era of Mashiach, and then Mashiach will come, right?"
I don't want people.
And Rudy's like, "No."
I don't want people to misunderstand me. Clearly, I mean, I hold beliefs even regarding the Messiah that aren't too far off what Rudy Rachman holds. However, at the same time, I'll say it's my personal opinion.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, and at the same time, I won't attack Christianity like he does. Mm-hmm. So you can't go against the mainstream without doing the right thing and apologizing for people who also went against the mainstream that you attacked in the past, right? You know, so it's okay for you to disagree with the mainstream, but it's not okay for other people to disagree with the mainstream. That's the hypocrisy.
Right. And that's what my video is like basically pointing out. I'm like, bro, at this point, you don't even need to be appealing to Jewish literature. You just need to say these are your opinions. Like, I think that you would get so much further by just personally saying, as a Zionist activist, like, this is what I believe. And I do notice sometimes in some videos, he tries to distance himself from like the religion. Like he literally said in one of his videos, he said, you know, like you're Jewish, and he uses like Kabbalah, I think, in this, right? You're Jewish no matter what you believe, right? And he's like appealing to this Jew who's pro-Palestine, right? And he's like, why would you be pro-Palestine? You're Jewish. And he's like, but you're Jewish no matter what you believe, right? And he's like going through this conversation with this college kid. And so he's walking him through, and he's like, listen, it has nothing to do with the religion. The religion, he's like, listen, you can be a if you're a Christian but you don't believe in Jesus, you're not a Christian. If you're a Muslim but you don't believe in Allah and the Prophet, then you're not a Muslim. If you're a Jew but you don't even believe in God, you're still Jewish, right? And this Jewish kid that he's arguing with says yes. So he appeals to the ethnic portion of the religion, but then he drops the religion. And so then he's saying,
like in that video, he calls him his brother because someone interrupts and he's like, I'm talking to my brother here. No, English. In English.
In English, yeah.
Because like a Muslim wouldn't know. I guess it's similar. It's like in Islam, you know. So he like most people, they're like a cholent, like a mixture of different ideas, and the problem is all these pass for Judaism, but if you believe in Yeshua, then it doesn't. So,
right, and that's what he does. Is he goes on and he takes away the religious aspect to it. And it's like, he's like, it's ethno-religion, except for when he only wants to appeal to the ethno portion, drop the religion part, because by the definition of the religion part, you're out of a covenant with Hashem if you don't keep it doesn't matter if you claim to be Jewish or not. According to Hashem, you're not a part of the covenant, right? So the belief portion, he knows, would knock them out, right? And so he's like, let's just talk politics. So I don't know why he continues to utilize the religious aspects of the book. He doesn't even seem to believe in it. I'd be interested in knowing. He says he's panentheistic, but not pantheistic, but panentheistic. And that's just antithetical to Megillah. Megillah 9a discusses like this very thing. Like with it, it's coming against those who believe like the universe was always like an existence and things like that. And it seems to be that's what he kind of thinks with that God is in everything. And like it's like it's very, I don't know, it's weird.
There's only one major thing, I guess two major things outside of the state of Israel that solidify people's Jewishness today. One is support for the state of Israel, and two is the fact that they don't believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you can spew anything you want in the name of Judaism, and no one will question it because rabbinic literature is so vast, especially when you enter Kabbalistic literature, that people are scared to say it's not true because they'll just say it's part of my Masorah. You know, they'll justify it in some way that you can't challenge it. There's one thing,
but that's what's weird though, is like he separates the religion part there. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, what are you basing this on? If you're like, he goes like Mashiach ben David, and then he's like Mashiach ben Yosef, and it's like, where are you getting that idea from? And he's like, he appeals to the Talmud, and he talks about the eras and the specifics of it. And it's like, wait a minute, why are you appealing to the Talmud, but you don't seem to even believe in that? Like, I would be very curious to hear like his straight out honest beliefs. Like, oh, I'm Jewish, I'm secular, I don't really, culturally, blah, blah, blah. Like, is he culturally Jewish, or does he actually have some sort of belief in Hashem?
This is why I say that it doesn't matter what you claim to believe in, it's what you can defend. Somebody challenged me on the basis that whatever, they called me like an Apikoros or something because I had an issue with the resurrection of the dead. And then they're like, okay, if you don't believe in the 13 principles that Maimonides, it's not like this in the Talmud, by the way, because I researched, nowhere in the Talmud does it say that if you don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, like you're an Apikoros or a min or a kofar. It doesn't say that. It's much, much later. However, I said, okay, you do believe in it? Explain it to me. So the closest verse they could use is that, oh, well, God is not a God of the dead, but a God of the living. Right? I mean, this actually appears in the New Testament. Right? That's not a verse to justify a doctrine that's so hard-coded in modern-day Judaism, meaning that the resurrection of the dead is a carnal resurrection. It's like unlike Christianity that makes it a more spiritual resurrection. Right? It's not what you claim to believe in to be accepted into certain synagogues, clubs, whatever, like date or marry the hottest girls, right? It's what you can defend. If you can't defend what you claim to believe in, then you don't really believe in it. So this goes back to Rudy Rochman. He can say that he believes in this, and I'm a kosher Jew because, but he can't tell you why he believes in it or why he doesn't believe in this unpopular idea. So from that perspective, I think God's going to give everybody a pass because most people don't know crap about what their most valued belief system, their religion, right? They just don't know. I mean, they're raised a certain way, especially in the Jewish world. Everything is tolerated except like if you say that you believe in Jesus, right? I mean, even if a Jew believed, like Muhammad could have been a prophet, this and that, that's even tolerated. I heard the Torah Carta you make an argument: is it really a sin to believe that someone's a prophet? It's weird. It's weird. And this is why I take the positions I take, because as someone who tries to actually talk things out with people, how can I talk things out and at the same time claim things as principles that I can't defend? Right? It's upside down. It's upside down. And if someone claims that we believe in an all-knowing God, he sees through your bullcrap. Right? So anyways.
Yep.
Welcome, Harun.
Everyone.
Shalem. Hello. Oh, you're muted. If you can't unmute yourself, I will try. So we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. Okay. Anyways, till then, we got Peaks in the house. Welcome, Peaks.
Hello there. Thank you.
Okay, so you are an agnostic who's been misidentifying as an atheist for misappropriating atheism for many years. Am I close? Because I think the spirit of prophecy is upon me.
Misappropriating atheism? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Can you hear me correctly? I think I might need to change my...
So that's an
No,
agnostic position.
We hear you well.
Yeah, we hear you well.
Okay.
Are you atheist or are you agnostic?
I think I'm both. I guess I can explain what I think I am. I don't believe in a God. I guess I lack a belief in a God. But, I won't say that 100% there isn't a God. I just don't think there is, and, pretty much not too sure if there is or not.
Yeah, that's an agnostic in my book. But we're talking about big picture.
So, wait a minute.
Take the big picture approach, right? Big picture, right? Courtney has a lot of good points, right? But I deal with the macro. I don't view you as an enemy of any particular religion. I'm pretty sure you disagree with parts of many different religions, which is why you haven't joined one. But I view you as a searcher, and I'm pretty sure that you're not against like someone trying to convince you otherwise, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct. If I was presented with evidence of there being a God, I wouldn't mind. Or, I'd take to it, I guess.
Yeah, an atheist would get pissed off. I mean, you'll be like, oh, you're all the same. And, atheists are more ethical than religious people. And yeah.
See, I think that, I've been in conversations with atheists that say, just provide me with some evidence. Like, that's what they ask, evidence. And I've been in rooms and conversations with agnostics that say the same. So it's very difficult to be able to distinguish the two in my book.
Yeah. So for the atheists that I've seen on this platform, a lot of them will use the word proof in a disingenuous manner. Prove to me that God exists when they know it's not possible to prove his non-existence or his existence. However, evidence, I think an agnostic uses the word evidence because he knows that is what makes the argument. Right? Proof, you can't prove or disprove God. Right? And then it boils down to what actually makes you a better person, at least in my book. Believing in the God of the Bible or not believing in the God of the Bible. And then the atheist will confidently say, as confidently as he said that there's no God, is that believing in God makes you a worse person. This shows that there's a chip on his shoulder.
I mean, I think it can, obviously there can be people who do bad or who are not good that believe or don't believe. I just, what I took atheist to mean is that, lack of a belief in a God. And I would consider I have a lack of belief. And agnostic is someone who doesn't know if there is one or not. So that's why I thought I would be considered both.
I'm so disappointed in my boy Danny.
You're speaking to your entourage, and you're calling atheists your boys here.
No. Oh no, I like Danny. He's a cool. He's
Phil
honest.
Danny?
Like when you have a conversation with him. Yeah. Danny's great.
Yeah, Danny's cool. I didn't come up here to debate too much. I mean, if it gets to that, that's cool. But I guess more to learn, and I guess see what you're talking about. Let's talk Judaism. Judaism might be for you, and Judaism as alternative.
Yeah, that's the platform. The platform is well, first of all, to let people know that it's possible to convert, not that you have to convert. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want people to check their brains at the door. Right? Now, followers are going to follow no matter what. Right? But whatever glitters in front of them, that's the path they're going to take. I try to appeal to people who have serious questions on how can they make the world better, how can they leave the world a little better, and then we can talk about that. That's my whole argument with an atheist, by the way. I think that people who believe in the God of the Bible, not in any God. Someone could believe in God, it will tell me nothing about how that person believes. But if you believe in the God of the Bible, who expects certain behavior from you, I think we could count on that person to do more good than someone who tries to decipher ethics for themselves on a daily basis. In the vast majority of cases, I'm sure there's some beautiful atheists out there and crappy religious people. However, if I would be a betting man, I would put my money with someone who tries to live by some code, whether God is made up, but they believe God exists, right?
Mhm.
I think that person will end up doing more good on this planet than, someone who just like feels that everything is by mistake and they're a piece of space garbage floating around.
I wouldn't say mistake. I would just say we exist, and that's kind of it. Not it was either a mistake or intentional, but it's just we just happen to exist. I kind of align with secular humanism. I probably can't even define exactly what that means, but humans, we understand empathy, we understand what pain and pleasure and prosperity is. So for the most part, humans want that for other humans. For the most part, like I said, it gets I guess muddy, but that's what I would go off of.
Like if you had to, if you gave someone to hold some money for you, right?
Mhm.
You don't know these people. All you know that one claims to be a religious Christian and one claims to be an atheist. Who would you trust more to guard your money?
Oh, interesting. If I don't know them both,
Right.
yeah, I guess you would probably say, oh well, the Christian, because he believes that lying, or not lying, stealing is a sin and you shouldn't do it and all that kind of stuff. So he kind of has a
All right. If you have a pet pig,
moral.
if you have a pet pig, right? Whatever, you're going to be locked up for 6 months. Someone has to take care of your pig. So would you trust that pig with a religious Muslim or a religious atheist on who might or might not eat your pig?
That is very funny. Maybe both. I'm being honest because I don't really think people know how to butcher animals. And
No, Muslims don't eat pork.
No, I know. So that's why it would be the obvious answer. But hey, people have pigs. They might just want to keep.
No, I get it. But what's more? As a betting man.
Yeah, the Muslim who's not going to eat it.
All right.
Hey,
so let's bring it down to real life.
He might unalive it just because it's like considered grotesque.
Yeah, or give it away. That's what I was going to say. That's what you took it.
All right.
I was going to say he's going to give it away.
Two girls, right? You're a single guy, 19, 20-year-olds, right? You don't care about commitment. Like, you're not religious yourself, assuming, right?
Yeah.
Two girls, whether you met in POF, right? Remember, is that website still up? Like Plenty of Fish or whatever? Well, all the hoochies on the site. Anyways, so who's more likely to put out on the first date? Like a religious Christian girl or an atheist girl? Come on, bro. You know the answer to this. The audience knows. The answer is...
Yeah, maybe atheist girl.
That's what's up. So like if you learned anything, like just filter out Christian girls in your PF searches. I'm kidding, obviously. But yes, being religious typically means you're more chaste. That means if you want something for your daughters and your sons, I think that we would prefer our kids accept some sort of palatable belief system that doesn't go against our, like I'd rather my son become a religious Muslim than become an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it's going to help them make better decisions in life. In the vast majority of cases, I'm sure there are beautiful atheists out there. I'm sure there's some chat rooms on Clubhouse made up of beautiful atheists. I don't think that hurts my argument in any way. I just put my money on someone who challenges their nature over someone who doesn't. In the vast majority of cases.
Right. I understand that, and those thought experiments or those questions made sense. Generally, if people hold to like some moral foundational guidelines or whatnot, it's easier to trust them before someone who you think might not have to hold to one. I think the problem comes because, like, of course, religion offers a lot of positive, do this right, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. But I think a problem comes when, like, religion tells you to do things, that can be harmful, that don't seem like we necessarily need to do it. It's just we need to do it, because God said so, or, a higher power said so, or so that, you don't get sent to hell. I don't know if that's a belief in Judaism, but like in Christianity. So it's like a lot of things that, sometimes religious people believe can end up being harmful, in my opinion, for no good reason. It's just because some person said so.
So I have a question for you, Peeps. Does
Yeah.
that mean that you kind of like, do you take a political stance against that personally? Like when you believe that those like religious fanatics, like maybe circumcision or something that you think would harm a person, you don't really see there's any like good reason for it. Would you stand against that?
You said politically?
Well, I mean, because like, I mean, think about it this way. I mean, why should you care whether or not, you know, a person has a fanatical or religious belief if it doesn't harm you, but you care about other people, right?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like empathy and humanism, you know, it's not just about me. I live in a world with other people. If I lived on an island by myself, honestly, I don't think there's anything I could do morally wrong, you know, because I'm alone. But as soon as you like insert other people on that island with me, then I could start doing, you know, wrong to other people because there's other people around me. So yeah, I
Okay.
care because it can hurt other people.
So do you care enough to actively, you know, either fight against that or stand against it or openly rebuke it?
I mean, within my means, you know, I'm not going to go out and fight every single
Yeah.
thing that's going to waste my, you know, my daily life and whatnot. But
Okay.
sure.
And just for my personal guess, do you identify as an atheistic agnostic?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just stick with agnostic, sure.
Asher finally caught on. I'm sorry.
Optimistic agnostic. Is that what you meant?
No, he said he identifies as an atheistic agnostic, right? So agnostic is in there, yet he has some
What does that even
similar
mean?
views
Hold on.
to it.
What's an
There
atheistic
it is.
agnostic? Right? That means you're pessimistic agnostic. That means like you're leaning towards making the final declaration. There won't be a God in my life. Eventually.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty close to that. I think I have pretty good reasons why I don't think a God exists. But what did you ask me, Courtney?
Okay, so do you identify as an agnostic or an atheist or both?
I mean, to continue the conversation smoothly, I guess I can just go with agnostic.
Okay, so agnostic, and yet you would actively challenge like some of these religious beliefs that you believe harm. Like you said, you're a secular humanist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Asher, do you see why I say it's hard to tell them apart?
No, I know that on a one-on-one level, okay, people are confused on what they actually are. However, big picture,
so
when people identify as
Asher
atheists,
says that you're really not like an atheist, that you're really just an agnostic. That means that you're like a wounded theist. You're someone that just like you're someone that just believes, you know, like you've had something that's happened to you, a wounded theist, right? And I'm making a distinction in that atheism and agnosticism are very similar in that a lot of atheists will identify as an agnostic, and yet, like Asher and I just had this long conversation about it, and I'm like, listen, it's difficult to distinguish atheism versus agnosticism because they believe like 90% of the same things, right? Even to the point to where,
90%,
like,
that's a big number. Right?
yeah, dude, yeah. I mean, he's sitting here telling you, like, he's confirming what I've stated for the last like 30 minutes.
I mean, he's not aligning with atheistical positions. I mean, he's basically.
Yes, he is. He just said that he would, to the best of his means, fight against these Christian or Jewish fundamentalists that he believes are harming people.
No, yes. I mean, I consider him a wounded theist. You could be a wounded theist, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of the person being religious. People nowadays, in Iran, for example, people in Iran, they're almost all becoming atheists because of the religion that's being exercised in their country, right? They're wounded theists, rightly so. But when you see people doing wrong in God's name, I mean, that's not their fault. That's just people misrepresenting God. If an atheist was on this channel and I asked them, like, do you think a Christian person is more likely to steal from you than an atheistical person? They'll be like 100%. Right, that's an atheist. They're programmed to, if you say right as a religious person, they're going to say left.
Do you see what Usher just said? He says that atheists are just straight up buttholes that don't want religious people to have their religion. So I would identify that as the new definition, as Asher calls it, anti-theist.
I was just going to say that.
But Asher doesn't. He doesn't accept that definition.
But that's
he
what
says,
atheism means. Atheism means anti-theist.
Okay, see, I think that's where we disagree, because I would agree with Courtney that would be an anti-theist, people who like purposely seek out to like, quote unquote destroy religion.
When have you ever seen someone online identify as an anti-theist?
Well, actually, on TikTok, quite a few people.
Yes, lots of them.
Anti-theist, like not atheist.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I haven't
specifically
seen it.
anti.
I haven't seen it.
There's this one guy. I know his profile picture, but he's on every few days, and he's definitely.
Yeah, he's got like the little demon horns like on his head.
I think so.
Yes, what's his name? Danny would know his name. Even if Danny's even still here.
It's not common. It's not common. When people think atheists, they think of the Christopher Hitchens in the world, the ones who actively want to destroy your faith. Not to be a God. I think that, at least with the way I teach religion, an atheist could say, you know what, I wish I was wrong, but I'm just not convinced, right? But no, they want you to be wrong. They'll twist. They'll flip everything upside down, saying that if religious people took control, that we'd all be in trouble. Like our liberties would be taken away from us. That's atheism. And that's what we're fighting against, right? Regardless.
Well, I just have to say I agree with Courtney. I would say that's anti-theism. And, I would tell someone on my side who's an atheist that, you shouldn't want to destroy people's religion or, completely eradicate it simply just because. But, maybe get people to, think about why they believe certain things. Because I feel like, everyone has a right to believe what they want. I think the anti-theist's viewpoint is just like, what you believe can be harmful. Therefore, you should start over from humanism, I guess.
So do you think that you run into a lot of agnostics, people who would identify as agnostics, that want religious people to just quote think, like you said, hey, I'm just doing I'm an agnostic and I'm doing this live and this backdrop, and I just want you Christians or you Jews or Muslims to just think about it?
No, I think it's more combative. Maybe one, because it's entertaining to see people really go at each other on these debates. So it's definitely not that passive. It's more aggressive, God doesn't exist, or God is fake, or God is not real, something like that.
But do you find that coming from the agnostics as well? Your God doesn't exist?
No, it's more of an atheist thing.
Gotcha. Okay. It's weird. Asher, he sides with both of us, like me in that one sense, and you here.
I think societies, governments function the best when they work off of agnosticism versus atheism. For example, I don't want a government to side with any particular religion, but I just don't want it involved in religion. Now, compare that to the Soviet Union, Marxist societies, atheistical societies that tried to abolish religion, shut down churches,
I disagree with that.
So he's saying that is now titled as an anti-theist when it really should just be theist or
it's atheist. Right. Okay, so nowadays, if you want to,
no, I'm telling
new
him,
terms.
Peaks. No, I'm telling him what you mean, Asher. He's basically, Peaks, Asher's saying, why call these people anti-theists when we should just call them atheists? That's what they want. They want to destroy people's religion. Do you agree with that? He's like, why continue to make new terms for the same people?
I don't agree with that, because I think being an atheist simply just means I don't believe that a God exists. That's it. But then when you want to tear other people's religion down who do believe a God exists, I think that's an anti-theist.
Okay, now if you were to categorize all of the world's atheists, how many of them do you think would want to tear down other religious beliefs? Just anecdotal. I don't even I'm not going to hold you to the number.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if there's too many that want to completely destroy the whole religion. religious thing. I think it's just the bad parts about religion. Because I was just watching a guy on live probably like 30 minutes ago. His name is Daniel Green, and he's an atheist or whatever he would call himself. And he mentions multiple times that like religion is fine except for when it harms other people. You know, believe what you want unless it, you know, interferes with other people. So I don't think it's too many that want to completely destroy it.
Yeah, I think he identifies as an atheistic agnostic. And here's the thing, though, and I've had conversations with him. He does these lives to actively convince people against, right? And he's very, soft-spoken. He's got the little stick that's holding the mic, and he's soft-spoken.
Yeah.
But he still is actively trying to convince people not to believe in a God, which is Asher's point. So he is, by definition, in that way, an anti-theist. But Asher's saying, stop calling him an anti-theist and call him what he is. He's an atheist, and therefore atheists are our enemies.
Gotcha. I think it's...
When they say that they only in some way become active or fight against something if it's hurting people, when they establish a standard for what's right and wrong, they decide what harm is. Like, don't say, GAY, don't say this when we're just trying to keep that type of literature from our kids. They'll say, like, no, you're actively harming people of this gender, or this persuasion. So this is why it's a bit disingenuous when someone who doesn't believe in a immovable set of ethics tells you that they only become animated or act when you begin like harming other people, because they become the final authority of what harm is.
I guess harm can mean different things to different people, but I feel like we generally know what it means to harm someone. And I do have to mention I am part of the community, so that's another part of the reason that, religion to me kind of doesn't make sense. But I see it when going back to Daniel. I see it as kind of both sides of the same coin. Obviously there's a lot of people who go on lives and they want to proselytize, and bring people into the religion. And then it's just the same thing on the other side. Some people might want to take people away.
Yeah, for sure. And then you could correctly say that they are our opponents. Right? I mean,
I guess you can say that. I guess the question is, I don't even know if that's...
The question is, should we just do away with the term that's been coined since like the 1600s, which is anti-theist, and just wipe it all away and call them atheist because it equals the same identical thing?
No, I don't think so. Because, if you want to, sure, but I don't think so because, like I said, atheist just means you don't believe, like, full stop, that's it. Now if you pursue that non-belief and, like, try to persuade others, that would be considered anti-theist. But sure, if you want to call them both the same thing, But
the one thing that I've stated with Asher is, like, you never run into an anti-theist. So by nature, every single anti-theist is also probably going to be an atheist. Does that make sense?
So it's interesting. Here it says that it was first coined in the 19th century. I don't know when you said 1600s here. It says the term anti-theist is less commonly documented in its origin to atheists. And anti-theist, which generally refers to a person who opposes theism, which is the belief in the existence of a god or gods. The term anti-theist appears to have been used in the 19th century through a precise documentation, where its first use is not clear-cut, as with atheist. And it gives some example. Jeremy Bentham, it says, so one of the earliest anti-theists is Jeremy Bentham of the 19th century. Right. So just to make it, to contest the idea that anti-theist is something that goes back to the early 1600s or whatever.
I'm getting a different search. I'm getting this, like the word anti-theism, hyphenated as anti-theism, has been recorded in the English language since 1780.
Hold on.
Yeah, A-N-T-I.
Yes, no, but you're saying theism, and I'm saying theist. Meaning,
bro, that's a single person. What are you talking about? Theism is the movement. Theist is a person.
Correct.
So I'm not
The
saying,
comparison
I
was
said anti-theism.
atheist and anti-theist. Right? And we're talking about someone who fights against a certain thing, not an idea that God doesn't exist. I'm just saying that it was first coined in the 19th century.
Okay, but an anti-theist is begotten
But it's
from that
absurd.
of an
It's absurd if you already
anti-theist.
have the term atheist. I mean, that's essentially my point. Yeah, but it doesn't go back to the 16th century.
Yes, it does. I'm reading anti-theism right now. The etymological roots for the word of the Greek anti-theos.
No, first time it is
1788.
coined. It is coined. Not the first time it's introduced into the English language. That means as a thing. It's the 19th century.
Not according to
The
this.
English language as we have it today is not that old. Okay, I
I'm
mean
about to
it
turn
may
my
have
phone.
older roots, but the way it's spoken today, okay, can't be from the 1600s and say that anti-theist or anti-theism was a thing in the 1600s. Back
I
then,
see both of your guys's. Courtney searched up anti-theism. It says 1700s, and you searched up anti-theist. It's 1833.
Right.
They're both there on Google.
Yeah, so my point is the belief, the actual movement, anti-theism, the ism, started earlier than the ist, the person. Because if you're an atheist, you're a single individual that has atheistic or atheism views.
I think you're
Atheism,
talking about the descriptive
begets.
term, okay, yeah, but not in terms of part of a movement. Anti-theist is from the 19th century, like you said, the 1800s.
anti-theism is sooner than that.
I guess back on topic. I think. Oh, I'm not muted. I think, people who are anti-theists or atheists kind of go out of their way to I don't know, attack people's beliefs or whatnot is because they see them as harmful. A big one nowadays is the rainbow community, very attacked under religion for, in my opinion, no good reason. There's what else is people claim about religion a lot? Oh, like politics. I know you said don't discuss politics, but when people are in office in the U.S., a lot of them vote based on the religion. And that's not really something I don't think we should do because, not everyone aligns with that religion. You shouldn't force people, to do something by law because of your religion. So I think those are the kind of two main ones. Is when people get in power, they put laws into place based on the religion. It's not too good if not everyone believes in that religion. And even if everyone did, there may come a time where the population changes and that religion is no longer the majority. Let's say like Hinduism in 200 years becomes America's new religion. The minority of Christian Americans wouldn't want Hinduism, to be in their law because it's not the religion they follow. So I think those are the two kind of things people are looking at nowadays, especially on TikTok.
Well, but the simple fact that we allow voting means that the minority will not see eye to eye with the outcome, which is basically the ideas of the majority. So it's true. The minority pay the price for being the minority. This idea that because if the majority of people who vote are religious, and I would say the vast majority of people in America claim to believe in some sort of God, then our laws are going to reflect that. And people who have a problem with that should essentially move to a state that's less religious, that could get more of a representation. So it's not a bad thing. It's democracy or a representative republic. So, yeah.
I understand. Not everyone can just kind of up and move, but yeah, if you have the chance to, sure. But also, I understand when you're saying it's a representative democracy. I think the thing is, if you were to go off of trying to put laws into place based on reducing the amount of harm to most people, I think some of these laws wouldn't be voted in. Like the gay marriage bill, that wasn't voted in by so many people. But if you're trying to reduce harm or increase prosperity between people, it would make sense that bill would be, allowed in because it's not harming anybody. But it's because of people's religion that they voted against it.
Yeah. So I think that's more what they call equity, like equality of outcome. That because you exist in your society, you're that your opinion or your representation should be equal by group, like not by numbers of people. That means if you have two Hindus in a city, Hinduism should be as represented as the 80% of Christians in that city, just because it happens to be a group, but not because of their actual numbers. So that's yeah. I mean, the idea that we should all end up with the equal amount of representation is the debate here. If you have a city that's 80% Christian, then the values coming out of the legislators of that city must resemble that of the voters, which would be Christian values. Right? And this goes if it's Islamic or like if it's atheistical. Right? I mean, if we vote, yeah. But I mean, that being said, I don't think many atheists give Christians the benefit of the doubt on how tolerant they actually are. They're typically not anti, I mean, but they're not anti-civil unions. I mean, they're anti the redefinition of the term. So it's yeah.
I've heard that too, the definition of the term. But I mean, it's just, at least in this, the U.S., I don't know where you guys are, but like, there's benefits to getting married, so if people can't get married, they don't receive those benefits.
So they changed most of those, by the way. In terms of civil unions in most states are recognized as full marriages. I mean, common law marriages are recognized almost as full marriages. So I mean, we've come a long way since like the first bill was ever passed. So now it seems that many people just want to get their lifestyle justified by some biblical term just out of spite. When they could share insurance plans and I don't know, like receive death benefits, for loved ones, like just being in a civil union.
Shalom, Courtney. She says she's got to run. So, I guess going back to your backdrop, why Judaism over Christianity or Islam?
So I like Christianity and I like Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I think that essentially they're net gains on this planet, ethical net gains. However, if you have three belief systems that are morally comparable, and I believe Judaism is a bit more moral, but assuming they're equally moral, it would behoove you to go with what's older, because it's almost less corruptible. With the idea that I'm going to combat an older religion with a new religion by whitewashing things that historically weren't palatable, right? Like now in some way, it's not necessarily about actions anymore. I mean, it's about creed. I mean, it seems a lot more appealing, to someone who doesn't challenge his carnal desires, right? I mean, perhaps you wanted to eat pork. I mean, perhaps you wanted to steal. And, like now you have the notion of almost a deathbed confession, which at least in the Torah wasn't evident, right? It seems like that would gain more adherence than something that was a little more stern, a little more merit-based. So, I mean, I think typically, like if you only have a choice between two roads, in most cases, it benefits you to take the harder road. Because it's harder to validate something new or something easier. So I mean, from that perspective, I think Judaism comes out on top.
Gotcha.
But not by much.
Gotcha. What do you think about the idea of someone not completely converting to any of the religions, but just taking what they see as valuable from the religion, and leaving what they might see as not viable or potentially harmful out. Say, okay, I like this tenet of Judaism. I like this tenet of Christianity or Islam. I'm going to follow this because I can see the benefit to this, but not necessarily pray 5 times a day or go to a mosque or something like that.
I get it. I mean, I'm all for that. I don't think that's ideal, but it's better than in some ways saying no. I'm just going to try to decipher right and wrong on a daily basis for myself, especially if they ever plan to have kids, being able to hand over something to your kids so they don't have to learn anything the hard way, I think it's great. Now, once they get older, I mean, they could decide if they want to follow a specific religion, but to give them poor man's philosophy, which is essentially biblical values, I think it's I mean, giving them like a good head start. There are many Jewish atheists. I guess from this perspective, they may be considered atheists, but to go back to our old argument, they may be agnostics who put their kids in religious schools because they see that it's great that a child should be raised with some set of immovable values, and then when they get older, they can decide for themselves. And if there was an atheistical school that had similar results, then I'd be a fan of them. But I think every attempt to in some way just throw out the biblical standard and redefine ethics, redefine the wheel, or reinvent the wheel ethically, typically leaves a trail of blood and carnage. Typically, from the Soviet Union, basically every atheistical pursuit, from North Korea, Cambodia. I'm on the fan of humanity. I'm on the side of humanity here as well. I want man to succeed, but for some reason, we can't duplicate the achievements that biblical societies or societies that have been influenced with the Bible have created. I mean, have achieved. It's just, why can't we? I mean, why is it that every attempt that we try to do things on our own without that biblical standard, we end up going backwards ethically? I just don't know. So I think it's better to live with the Bible that I don't believe is perfect, by the way. I mean, there's some parts of the Bible that I wish were worded differently, than to have someone, write their own Bible, like Mao's Little Red Book, or that's why I'm a proponent of religion.
You mentioned Mao and Soviet Union. I think they probably didn't have, secular humanism at their forefront. Maybe it was whatever else destroying religion. But I think if you were to have a society that based its morals or ethics on secular humanism, you'd see a bigger or a different, outcome than just kind of do whatever you want. Because I don't think we should just do whatever we want. I think, like I said, I'm on an island with 7 billion other people, 8 billion, whatever it is. So there are things you kind of should and shouldn't do because other people are around, I just think some rules and regulations of religion, I don't know. I feel like sometimes they just don't make sense, and there's no good reason for why you must follow this thing.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. There's some parts of the Bible that make no sense to me. But if I have something I agree with 98% of the time, I consider that a good book. Compared to everyone else's track record. What's the oldest example of secular humanism? With the French Revolution? I'm trying to think. When did humanists actually get together to try to make something better? And we see how the French Revolution ended up. And I think, Marxism was essentially humanistic in nature. They targeted the working man, just like, feminists target women and BLM target blacks just to push an atheistical agenda. But I would welcome a sincere attempt to in some way better the world without the Bible if we saw, some sort of trend, of it actually making people better, but we don't.
I've heard the argument, I don't know how true it is, that the stats coming from, the northwestern European countries that, aren't based in religion, Switzerland, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands, those kind of countries, their stats, the how happy their people are, their crime rates are, stellar, and they're not really a religious country. But then you look at countries that are religious, and it's kind of not the same. It's kind of,
So all those countries have one thing in common. Well, two things in common, but in particular, they all have a cross on their flag, meaning that if you go back 50 years, they were almost all religious. So what's occurring is what's called cut flower ethics. That only because you detach a plant, a rose, from its source, it'll continue to bloom till its philosophy catches up with it. And that's what we see happening in Europe. I mean, look at Sweden. I mean, Sweden had such a low crime rate till left-wing policies allowed such an influx of refugees that they've replaced the peaceful, loving Swedes. So I think time will tell that it would have benefited them to remain religious than this open-minded. But yes, it's true. I mean, they seem to be, these welfare states seem to be very, very charitable and content, at least for the time being. But anyways, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end it. Thank you for stopping by, Pete. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. Until next time, be well. Shavuot tov. And to my TikTok world, Shavuot tov.